Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei was son of the Satan. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. In the fight against Raizer Phoenix, Issei is about to give the coup de grace by throwing holy water at him. But something happened, the water didn't work. That was the moment that decided the battle for the freedom of Gremory estuaries. 1 week later, human world. It's been a week since Issei's defeat. Rias's entire entourage has moved to the underworld except for Issei, who was expelled because he interfered in a wedding of high-class demons. The only way for him to enter is with permission from some of the Mao. With Issei, he was on the roof of Ko Academy after a week since I lost and disappointed Rias Butcho. I don't think I'm disappointed in you. Issei was heard behind the chestnut tree. How do you know Sona Kaicho isn't Issei responding? Because I have known her since childhood and also because she sent you this, she said, showing him a hologram of Rias. Issei, sorry for putting you in this situation. The day I revived you I iced it because of your power. I only used you Issei, but the day you told me that you loved me for me and not for my last name, that was the day I realized that I love you Issei. For that reason, I didn't want to lose you, but because of me you hurt me. Forgive me was what was heard from the hologram before disappearing. I love you too, Rias was what Issei whispered before starting to cry. Sona didn't finish speaking because Issei ran out of there. In the occult club, Hyoudou Issei was sitting in the chair that once belonged to Rias. Because I'm so weak, the brunette said between tears. You are not weak Issei, you just have to wake up. Who's there, spoke the chestnut, looking everywhere. Wake up Issei. Who you are? Issei wakes up. What do you want? Wake up. Issei stood up from the chair, sweating with his breath coming in heavily. What happened was what Issei said to himself, touching his head. It wasn't a dream, I'm sure of that. The brunette grabbed his things and headed home. I'm here, said the brunette, entering his house. Mom, Dad, the brunette said again. Issei walked to the living room and no one was there. He went up to his parents' room and when he opened the door he was shocked. His mother and father were dead. Was the scream that was heard throughout the house. Suddenly a black aura started to leave Issei. Issei waking up was what Issei heard. But the young brunette still had that black aura. Issei awake, the brunette heard again. Issei awake was the scream that was heard throughout his head. From one moment to the next, Issei is going in front of Sona Kaicho. Something happened, Issei said, confused, because in one moment he was in his house and now he is in front of him, as if everything that happened was a simple dream. Yes, he is talking to you, but since the hologram ended you got lost. I was talking to you, but he didn't react. He spoke sounding a little worried. Something is wrong with you Issei. Don't worry Kaicho, he's just thinking, Issei said with a fake smile that didn't go unnoticed by Suna. I'm not going to believe it if you say it, but remember that you can trust me. She said, a little worried, and remembered that tomorrow those sent by the church are coming, and as a member of Rias' entourage you have to be there. I'll be there Kaicho, don't worry, said Issei before leaving, and leaving a thoughtful Sona. You've changed a lot, Issei, Sona thought. With Issei he was heading to Asia. The club hit him. When he entered the room he could see a small package that was on the desk where Rias sat. The curious brunette approached and took the package and opened it. Inside via a DVD with a small note that said for Issei. The brunette didn't pay any attention and put the DVD in his bag to watch it at home. The brunette sat on the chair and began to sign club papers. In the underworld we see a Rias crying and an Akino comforting her along with the rest of her entourage. Calm Rias, Asia, and Akino with tears in her eyes. How do you want me to calm down if that idiot Raizer raped me and took my virginity? Since you're asking me to calm down, he laughs a lot. The worst thing is that he recorded me and sent it to Issei. Butcho said. Kiba, Asia, and Kaneko hugged their king. Human world, Issei's home. We see Issei, who is about to enter his house when he feels a strange presence. Issei very carefully opens the door and heads into the living room when he sees two women talking to their fathers. Mom, who are they? Issei asked. This is Irina, your childhood friend. You don't remember her, answering the chestnut's mother, and the other is Zenobia, a friend of Irina. What? Irina was a woman, the brunette shouted. Haha, at that time I saw myself as a man, said Irina, laughing at Issei's reaction. Well, we have to go, as the blue-haired girl said. Issei, You can take them to the door, said the older brunette. Okay, Issei responded. Already at the door, Irina told Issei, so now you are a demon. Yes, the brunette answered with a melancholic smile. Let's go, Irina said. Zenobia. Goodbye, Issei, Irina said. Goodbye, the brunette replied. When the two exorcists left, Issei closed the door and headed to his room. This day something strange was what Issei thought. With Irina and Zenobia they had gone to an abandoned church. So that was your childhood friend, said the blue-haired girl. Yeah, I didn't think he would become a demon, said the brunette with regret in her words. This must be a test from God. Well, rest. Tomorrow we have important things to do, the blue-haired girl said, closing her eyes. The next morning Issei went to school. Walking around he found the president of the student council. Kaicho, what are you doing out here? Issei asked her. I'm waiting for the wings sent by the church, she responded. But that's not after school, Kaicho, Issei asked again. He came forward. If you want you can go ahead and go to the student council room, Sona said to Issei. Kaicho, Issei responded, walking towards the council room. A few minutes later Issei is already at the door of the student council. He knocked on the door and instantly the Queen of Sona opened the door. Hyoudou, please come in, said the Queen of Sona, showing him a seat. Hyoudou, a blonde boy, spoke. What happened, Saji? The brunette responded to what he now identified as Saji. How do you feel? The blonde asked. Good, he said with a fake smile that none of those present saw. When Saji was going to answer, the door opened, revealing the president of the council with two hooded women behind her. Sona sat at her seat and started talking. We can start the meeting. At that moment, the two hooded women removed their hoods, revealing Irina and Zenobia. Well, this will be brief, Zenobia spoke. Some fallen angels have stolen the Excalibur fragments, Irina said. For that reason we do not want you to interfere in this matter, Zenobia spoke again. I give you my word that none of my entourage or Raises will get involved in this matter, Sona responded. Good, said the two exorcists. When Ivan came out, Irene spoke about Asia Argento's witch. I didn't see her. At that moment everyone present felt a dark aura coming from Issei. In a quick movement the brunette is already in front of Irina. He grabbed her by the neck and slammed her to the ground. The brunette spit out a large amount of BLD. When Irina looked at Issei's eyes they were red as BLD boosted gear was what she heard before she fainted. Issei was going to land a blow but he felt a sword on his neck. He looked at Reba and saw Zenobia pointing her sword at him. What are you doing? She asked, sounding worried about the brunette. At that moment, Issei reacted. Hey, what happened here? The brunette said, confused. Issei looked at him holding Irina by the neck and quickly let go of her. What's happening to me? Issei whispered to himself. Zenobia grabbed Irina. And he left the room with the unconscious brunette. Issei was at home lying in bed thinking about what had happened at school. What's wrong with me? The brunette just gave a tired sigh. The brunette looked at the window and saw the moon girl. I miss you so much, Issei whispered to himself. Truthfully I forgot to watch the DVD. I guess I still have time before I sleep, Issei thought before standing up and starting to look for the DVD. When he found it, he turned on the TV and the DVD player had already done that. The brunette played the video. What he saw left him in shock. Boom was what was heard in Issei's room. The brown one has BLD red eyes and his hair is slowly turning black. I will kill you, Raizer Phoenix was the last thing Issei said before he fainted. At that moment the brown boy's parents came in, seeing Issei on the ground and the TV on Blackfire, which seemed strange to them, but they let him in to see how their son is doing. In Issei's mind the brunette saw everything black. Where am I? The brunette asked himself. You don't know, the voice asked behind Issei. This is your mind. Why is everything black? The brunette asked the mysterious voice. If you want to know you must wake up, the voice responded. Wake up from what? The brunette asked again. Wake up, Issei. But what? Wake up? But what do you want me to wake up about? Shouted the brunette. At that moment Issei opened his eyes. The brunette is sweating with ill-bred breathing. Issei touched his head. What was that all about? Issei whispered to himself. Oh, you're awake, Issei's mother spoke from the door. What happened to me? The brunette asked. I don't know, your father and I saw you on the floor, Tereo, responded the chestnut's mother. I see. At that moment Issei remembered about the video and his eyes turned red. Raizer, I will kill you. He whispered the last thing so that his mother didn't hear. Well, I think you're fine now, so you can go to school today, spoke the chestnut tree's mother. Ah, don't worry, I'm fine, the brunette responded. Well, come down to breakfast, you're already late, said the brunette's mother, leaving the room. So you've already recovered your memory, Issei, was what the brunette's mother whispered, going down the stairs. The brunette bathed, left the room, had breakfast and left for the choir academy. On the way, Issei met his two former best friends, Misura and Motohama. Sorry if I'm wrong about their names, but I don't know how to spell it. Look, there goes the traitor, Misura said to Motohama. Issei looked at him and walked past him without speaking to them. The brunette walked toward school until he saw something interesting. Irina and Zenobia are asking for money. The brunette approached her. Hello, Irina, I want to apologize, said the brunette. Irina felt uncomfortable in Issei's presence. Zenobia noticed that and said, don't worry, what happened happened. But I really want to be rewarded for what I did. The brunette replied, what do you think if I invite you to eat after school? Zenobia shouted. Well, see you after school, that's fine, said the brunette. It's okay, we are in the same place, Zenobia spoke. Okay, said Issei, leaving the place. Already when Issei left, Irina spoke, because you accepted the invitation. Because I'm hungry, Zenobia responded. You know, I think he doesn't remember what happened yesterday. Irina saw her and didn't say anything. The two exorcists grabbed their swords and headed towards the church where they were staying. Meanwhile, with Issei, the brunette was entering his second PRD of class since he stayed talking to Zenobia and Irene was late for school. The brunette entered his class and settled in a position by the window. The brunette stared intently at a tree. I love you, a young silver-haired woman spoke. Her face couldn't be seen well. Who are you? The brunette asked. We will be together forever. I speak of the silver movie Turn 12. But who are you? Shouted the brunette. Hyoudou. The brunette felt that someone was calling him young Hyoudou. It's disrespectful not to pay attention to class. When the brunette heard that, he reacted. The teacher said something. Issei spoke confusedly. When the teacher was going to answer the door, it was opened by a young woman with black hair and glasses. Oh, young Shinra, what brought you here? The teacher spoke. I came for the young Hyoudou. The queen of Sona responded that the president wishes to speak with him. I hear you, young man, the president calls you. Issei got up from his seat, took his bag and left the room together with the vice president of the student council. On the way, Issei was thinking about the young silver-haired girl who the brunette whispered to himself. The black-haired girl heard it but didn't give it any importance because they had already arrived at the student council room. When the black-haired girl opened the door revealing a completely serious sound, Issei entered from behind the black-haired girl. My name is Kaicho Issei. Get straight to the point, tomorrow Rias and her entourage are coming. I speak Sona, and as you already know, you cannot come or you will be given a house for breaching the contract you made with the Mao. Loose, said a serious Issei. Flashback. One day after Issei's defeat, in a room we can see several people. On one side there was the Phoenix family, on the other there was the Gremory family, there was also the Citri family. In front of these people was Issei handcuffed. The brunette stared at the four Mao who were sitting in front of him. Well, since we're all here, we can all start with this meeting. This is Surzek Hyoudou Issei. You are here because Raizer Phoenix wants to punish you for interrupting his wedding. At that moment the Raizer came in. You know I wanted your death, but apparently it can't be done. The blonde Phoenix whispered in the brunette's ear that the punishment for this scum is banishment. Serafal spoke with a seriousness that impressed her family. Well, what I want is for this scum to be prohibited from setting foot in the underworld, said Raizer, surprising everyone present. I also want Rias and her entourage to live in the Phoenix mansion. I mean, you want Rias and her entourage to have no contact with Issei. You also want Issei to be prohibited from visiting the underworld, correct? Surzek asked quietly. Correct, said the blonde Phoenix. Well then I speak Surzek Hyoudou Issei. Because of the power I have as a Mao, I will expel you from the underworld. You will only be able to enter if one of the Mao allows you to. Rias and her entourage looked with regret at everything that would happen. Akino, Kaneko, Asia and Kiba would live in the underworld in the Phoenix Mansion and would stop going to the human world. That is, they would leave school. Surzek finished speaking. Wait spoke to the brunette who remained silent. It is not necessary for them to leave school. What do you mean, Issei-kun? I speak Serafal. What I mean is that Rias Butcho and her entourage can be there per module, and when they have to deliver it, Sonakaicho tells me not to go to school that day, Issei said, surprising everyone. Rias and her entourage were grateful for that, but they were also sad for how the brunette named them. Well, who can give us the assurance that you will miss those days? Surzek asked. We can make a contract where it says that. If I show up to school that day, all the demons can give me a house, Issei said, leaving everyone speechless. Finn flashback. Well, that was all. You can leave now, Sona said. Goodbye, Issei responded, leaving the place. The brunette walked to his living room, when Iago entered and sat in the same place he was. Classes passed quickly in Issei's opinion. Already at the exit, the brunette headed to the place where he had to meet Irina and Zenobia. Already at the place, Issei waited a few minutes. Sorry for the delay, Zenobia spoke from behind the chestnut tree. The brunette turned around and saw the two members of the church. Don't worry, I just arrived too. The brunette spoke with a smile. Well, let's go to Bolivia and the brunette will talk. The three entered the restaurant at the front and inside. Issei told them to order whatever they wanted and he would pay. A few minutes later, the brunette regretted seeing them invited to eat. I can ask you a question, Issei asked the hungry exorcist. Okay, what do you want to know? Zenobia responded. Because the church sent only you two to ask for the chestnut tree. I say there are many fallen angels and there are two of you. I don't know how. Zenobia responded. They can die, Issei said. If it is God's will to die. We will die with pleasure, answered Irina. You crazy people don't value your life, said Issei. My life belongs to the Lord, Irina responded. Well, Issei, thank you for the food, said Zenobia, standing up to leave with Irina. Wait, Issei said, let me help you with the sword problem. You're not from the church, Irina said. Let me help you, you are my childhood friend and I don't want anything to happen to you, said the brunette. Irina turned red. This is fine, but you're not going to get in trouble with your ex, said Irina, red with embarrassment. Don't worry about that, said Issei. Then tomorrow he picked them up at the abandoned church. It's okay, we will be waiting for you, said Zenobia. See you tomorrow, Issei-kun said to Irina, running out. Well, that's it, boy, Issei said. Zenobia was walking as if nothing had happened. He, the brunette only laughed at his friend's actions. When the brunette was leaving, an employee took him by the hand. Young man, here's the bill. Issei looked at the bill and his face turned white. The brunette was walking towards his house, passing by the fountain where his supposed girlfriends had killed him. Issei stared at the place for a while. You know, Drake, I always wondered what my life would be like if Yuma didn't kill me, the brunette spoke. Probably the Gremory girl summoned you and then it was proposed to you to be reincarnated as a demon, and since you are a pervert you would say yes, Drake said. Ah, I think you're right, said Issei. The brunette looked once again at the place where it all began, gave a sigh and began to walk towards his house. Once at home, the brunette saw that everything was off. He entered carefully so that his mother wouldn't smell him. When he was about to go up the stairs, the light in the living room turned on. The brunette turned pale knowing who it was. Why are you arriving so late? Asks the brunette's mother. You are supposed to leave at 5:30, it takes you an hour to get home and look, the time you arrive is 10 o'clock at night. Can you give me an explanation, young man? The brunette turned to see her and his heart broke. His mother had indications that she was crying. Issei looked at her and approached her. He gave her a big hug and then said, I love you. She looked at him sternly and said, You haven't answered me, she said. He was with Irina, said the brunette. She just sighed at the other call. I don't want to worry, she said, standing up from the couch and walking towards her room. When the chestnut tree's mother closed the door to his room, what did he tell the chestnut tree's father? I was with Irina, said the MI. To not make it so long, boy, I'm going to put M. I, which means Issei's mom, and I'll put P. I, which means Issei's dad. He was with the exorcist, the P.I. asked. That's what he told me, the M.I. responded. How complicated this is getting said to the P.I., don't even say it, the M. I spoke as she lay down in bed with her husband. With the brunette, he was already lying down thinking about how busy tomorrow would be. The next day, the brunette woke up with a lot of sweat on his body, and with short breathing he looked at the clock. It was already 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Issei went to take a shower, took off his clothes and entered the shower. What was that dream? Said the brunette and Gabriel. Flashback Issei's dream. The chestnut tree was in a appealing meadow. In front was a very appealing young woman with blonde hair, but you couldn't see her face. Hello, the brunette spoke. Hello, said the young blonde. Who are you? The brunette asked. You don't remember my Ise, said the blonde. I don't know who you are, the brunette spoke. That's because you're asleep, said the blonde. What are you talking about? This is a dream, the brunette asked. What do you think? I don't know, said the brunette. Suddenly Issei was in a very appealing room like a princess's. The blonde entered through the door of the room. Ise-kun was looking for you. Play with me, the blonde asked. The brunette was confused. One moment he was in a meadow and now he is in what seems to be the blonde's room. Where am I? The brunette asked. What are you talking about? If this is your room, said the blonde. My room, shouted the brunette. But why are you screaming? The blonde asked, covering her ears. You're going to deaf me. What's your name? The brunette asked, now calm. The blonde looked at him for a few seconds. Issei, you're asleep. Suddenly Issei appeared in what seemed to be a forest. He started to look everywhere but he didn't see anyone. The brunette said to himself, help someone help me. The brunette, without thinking, ran to where the voice came from. When he arrived he saw the blonde who was in the bridal position sobbing. The brunette approached her and hugged her. Calm down, Gabriel, everything will be fine, the brunette spoke in trance. How do you know everything will be okay? He asked, leaning closer to the brunette. Because I am your brother and I would never let anything happen to you, said the brunette in trance. You will never leave me? The blonde asked. I will never leave you, Issei responded in trance. But how will you protect me if you're asleep? At that moment Issei woke up. Flashback. The brunette got out of the shower and went to change. He put on long black briefs, a red sweater, a navy blue jacket, and black and white sneakers. After changing the chestnut tree he went down to eat. You're not going to school today, I asks the brunette. No, I don't have class today, Issei said. It hurt him to lie to his parents but it was for his own good. I'm sure I saw several boys walking towards the choir academy, said the M.I. looking at him intently. The brunette turned pale. Issei thought, well, what happens is that those who are in a club must attend, Issei said. But you're in a club, right? The P.I. spoke. Well, yes, but Butcho told us that we had him free today. The brunette spoke with a small smile. Well, but where are you going? Asked the M.I. I decided to see Irina, said Issei. Okay, but don't come back late, said Issei's mother. Anything, I'll call you. That's fine, said Issei. Okay, the mother spoke. Issei finished eating and left the house, heading to the abandoned church where Irina and Zenobia were staying. Do you think we have to keep an eye on him? Issei's dad spoke when the brunette came out. I don't think so, Issei's mother responded. Maybe if something bad happens he will regain his memory. Do you think something bad is happening? The P.I. asked curiously. What do you think? The church sent 2 girls to fight against a corpse and the M.I. Do you think Issei can go against Kokobile? Asked the chestnut's dad. Truly, you weren't there that day, said the chestnut's mother, looking at her husband with a small smile. Boy, let's tell you about Issei's fight against Kokobile. At the choir academy we see how the president of the student council was signing some papers until she was interrupted by a magic circle very familiar to her. Rias and her entourage appeared in the room. Hello Rias, how have you been? Sona asked her friend / rival, so to speak. Rias looked at her and then answered wrongly. Sona looked at her for a while until she spoke and they brought the task that was asked of her. Yes, here is all of us, said Rias. Well, you can put it here, he spoke, Sona pointing to a corner of his desk. Rias put the papers on the desk. Well, we're going to be at school for a while, we'll be in the occult club, Rias would talk to. You're not going to ask me how I am, Sona said. Rias looked at her for a few seconds before answering. I've been watching, right now she's going to meet those sent by the church. What? Sona said, stopping him. If he can't get together with them is going to cause a war to break out. I can't do anything, Rias responded, besides they do some exorcism in demon territory. You must know by now that you watch Essie, Sona said. My family member couldn't get past the barrier you created and I couldn't know what they were talking about. They responded. So your family member keeps an eye on Issei, Sona, cleaning her glasses. Well, I can't get close to him, but they never said I couldn't watch him, said Rias. Then are you going to tell me what they talked about with the church envoys? Well, but first, why don't we play Sona said, sitting down and putting in front of her a very well-known Pariah's board game. Hehehe, because we don't have time to play, Ria spoke while sitting in front of Sona. Well, what happens is that apparently someone has been stealing the Excalibur fragments, said Sona, moving a pawn. That's kind of what they were talking about, Rias responded, moving on her horse. Yes, but apparently they only came to tell us that they don't want us to get involved in that, Sona spoke, moving his bishop. Then why is Issei with them? Rias asked doubtfully, moving the second knight, eating Sona's pawn. I don't know, maybe Issei wanted to help her. Sona responded, moving her pawn. But why did Issei want to help her, you asked, moving his pawn? Well, Issei left one of the exorcists upset, maybe he wanted to apologize and well he was helping them. Sona said, moving her rook, eating Rias's pawn. What? I speak, scream, and laugh. Rias spoke to Aquino, who was behind the red-haired girl. Aquino Rias said what happened, but when she looked at her friend again but something strange happened, she only saw the black girl where Kiba and Kaneko were. That's what I was going to tell you when I saw they weren't there, Aquino said. With Issei, the chestnut tree was already arriving at the abandoned church. When he arrived he entered and there were Irina and Zenobia. Hello, said Issei, gaining the attention of those present. You're late, Irina said. Sorry, I fell asleep, Issei said, laughing nervously. Well, let's go and look for Fried Selzen, the renegade exorcist, Zenobia said, walking to the door along with Irina. When Issei took a good look at them, he saw that they both had bandages. What happened to you because you are wearing bandages? The brunette asked. Yesterday we met Fried, he has been stealing the Excalibur, said Irina. Flashback. After saying goodbye to Issei, the two exorcists were walking towards the abandoned church. Can you tell me why you came out that way? Zenobia asked Irina. Since we were children I have always liked Issei. When I saw him at his house and felt his presence I became sad. I wanted to cry. The boy I liked was a demon, a dirty demon, Irina said. And what does that have to do with it? Zenobia responded. Later when he attacked me for speaking ill of the witch I saw his eyes were red, he showed anger, he showed disgust, Issei was angry with me and he disgusted me, I didn't know what to do, I wanted to cry but then I fainted, I don't want to go back to seeing him, I don't want to see the boy I like, he looks at me with disgust, said Irina, sobbing. So that's it, Zenobia said, you like Issei and you don't want to go back to see what he looks at you. Yes, I came to this mission just to see him, said the brunette. The two remained silent. When they felt something approaching they jumped to the sides, Irina to the right and Zenobia to the left. But just look what I found, 2 pieces of trash. Ha! Who are you? Get out of where you are, Zenobia said, taking out Excalibur destruction. Irina imitated Zenobia by taking out Excalibur mimicry. From the shadows of an alley came Fried Selzen. Haha! But just look at the carrier of destruction and the carrier of mimicry, said Fried, taking out Excalibur quickly. Where did you get that sword? Zenobia said. Haha, which one is mine? Fried said, appearing behind Irina when she was about to make a move, her sword was stopped by Zenobia. Zenobia moved away from Fried to launch herself again and clash sword with Fried, but the renegade did not see when Irina tied his feet with a Rosa WHP. Irina slammed it into the ground. Zenobia was about to cut off her head but Fried disappeared from the sight of the two exorcists. He appeared behind Irina and kicked her in the ribs, sending her crashing into Zenobia. The blue-haired girl reacted quickly and dodgily to Irina but she didn't notice when Fried got in front of her and received a blow to the stomach. Zenobia spat out blood. Fried grabbed his head and slammed it into the ground. Ha, come on, that's all they have, Fried said. Fried didn't notice when Irina got up and cut him on his right leg. Fried fell to his knees. Zenobia took the opportunity to get up and walk away from the renegade. Irina stood next to him. What are we going to do? The brunette asked. I don't know, Zenobia whispered so that only Irina heard her. They whisper so much, Fried said, launching into the attack. Zenobia and Irina wasted no time and jumped in too. In that place you could only hear swords clashing. Fried moved away from the two of them. The renegade was bad sheet. This is taking too long, I'll have to go. Fried though. Irina and Zenobia were not at all well. Irina's left arm was covered in blood. And Zenobia had some scratches but nothing serious. Fried looked at the two before throwing a small ball that exploded into light. mowing down the two exorcists. When the light passed, Freedom was no longer there. It seems like he's gone. Zenobia said that her sword disappeared. Irina also did the same. Now what do we do? Irina asked. Go to the church and Bender the messes, said Zenobia, walking along with Irina, who was supported by the blue-haired girl. Finn flashback, and that's what happened, said Zenobia. We finally found you when a voice was heard behind the chestnut tree. When the brunette turned to see who had spoken to him, and he was impressed since in front of him was none other than Kiba, Hyoudou and Kaneko Tuju. What are you two doing here? The brunette asked. Do you know them? Zenobia asked. Yes, they are demons just like me, Issei. Responded. He is Hyoudou. Kiba Issei said, pointing at the blonde. She is the little Kaneko, he said, pointing at the white-haired girl. Issei-senpai, it's a pleasure to see you again. Little Kaneko, could you tell us who the senpai are? Well, the blue-haired girl is Zenobia. Issei said, pointing to the blue-haired girl, and the one with brown hair. And Irina. Issei said again, pointing to the brunette girl. It's a pleasure, Kaneko said. Kiba just stared in a hostile manner at the exorcists. You two, the blonde spoke, gaining the attention of those present. I want a duel, my sword against your swords. What the F are you talking about? Kiba Issei said. Don't get involved, Issei said. Kiba, this is my fight. Zenobia looked at him for a while, those eyes showing wanting revenge. Zenobia thought. Kiba, I don't know what's wrong with you, but just by being in front of me you've already put a rope around my neck. Issei spoke. I'm sorry, Issei, but I have to do this, Kiba said. It's okay, I accept your fight, said the blue-haired girl. But what are you talking about, Zenobia? We have work to do, said Irina. Don't worry, this will be quick, said Zenobia. A while later, everyone behind the church, Kiba and Zenobia, were face to face. Kiba had a sword and Zenobia had destruction. Irina stands in the middle of the two, ready to start, said the brunette, jumping back. Neither of them moved. They were analyzing each other with their eyes. A small breeze blew, moving the trees, causing a small leaf to fall little by little. When the leaf touched the ground, the two launched themselves into the attack, causing their swords to clash. Zenobia kicked, making the blonde jump back, dodging the kick. Kiba gained momentum and launched himself again, but once again Zenobia dodged it. The blonde released the sword, causing the blue-haired girl to lose her balance. At that moment, Kiba once again summoned another sword and made a movement to the left, trying to cut Zenobia, but the blue-haired girl narrowly avoided it. Sheet, it's good, I have to be more careful, Zenobia thought. The blonde jumped back, taking distance, but the blue-haired girl didn't allow it and ran towards him with a move that the blonde managed to block, but he didn't expect Zenobia to kick him in the stomach, knocking the air out of him. The brunette is watching everything together with Irina and Kaneko. Zenobia-san is quite strong, Kaneko said. Of course she is strong. She was trained by one of the best exorcists in the church, said Irina. Issei was still silent, watching everything very cautiously. It seems that this is already over. Kiba summoned a large sword and launched himself at Zenobia. He has become slower, Zenobia thought, dodging the attack very easily. The blue-haired girl disappeared from the blonde's sight. He appeared behind him and hit him strong on the back of the head, making him fall unconscious. Issei and the girls approached Zenobia. Then let's go back to the church. Issei Hasai, Kaneko-chan tells us what they are doing here. It's okay, said the three girls. A while later, Issei and the girls were at the church. Well, Kaneko-chan, can you tell us how they got here? The brunette asked. It's okay, senpai. The little Kaneko left. Flashback. Rias and her entourage had arrived at the student council room. They handed in their work and were about to leave until the president of the student council, Sona Shirori, or rather Sona Citri, stopped them and asked him and Rias if he wouldn't ask how Issei is. She only answered saying that she already knew how he was. Then Rias asked about the exorcists who were in the territory. Sono replied saying something about the fact that they were on a mission to recover some swords, more specifically the fragments of Excalibur. When Kiba heard, his eyes widened. Finally the boy could be friends. Kiba thought with a cold look. This look did not go unnoticed by Kaneko. The blonde walked away in silence and left the room, but did not notice that a white girl was following him cautiously. When the blonde was outside the school, Kaneko spoke to where Hyoudou-senpai goes. Kiba turned around and saw Kaneko boy off to do some things, said the blonde. Can I accompany you, senpai? The little Kaneko asked. Don't worry, it will be quick. Then it would be faster if I accompanied him. Okay boy, let's go look for Issei, Kiba said with a cold look. Then boy with you, said little Kaneko. It's okay, Kiba said, giving a sigh of resignation. And where will we look? Asked the little white girl. Rias Butcho said he was with the exorcists, so I imagine they must be in the church, Kiba responded. The two ran towards the church. When they arrived they saw Issei on his back talking to two girls. We finally found you, Issei, Kiba said, looking at the girls with a cold look. Fin flashback. Well, now we know how they arrived, said Issei. Now we just have to wait for Kiba to get up. Could you give me the bathroom? Issei asked Irina. Okay, follow me, said Irina, getting up and starting to walk. When they arrived Irina pointed out a door. The brunette nodded and walked towards the door. He entered and closed the door. The brunette, following his needs, washed his hand and stared intently at the mirror. You and I will always be together, right? Said a little red-haired girl. Of course, you and I will always be together, said a black-haired adult. The brunette was behind the redhead looking at the scene with curiosity. Where am I? Issei thought. Out of nowhere he appeared in a room. He was what the brunette managed to say due to the drastic change in Isina. The door opened and a black-haired man about 25 years old and a black-haired girl about 8 years old entered. I have a gift for your trip, the little black-haired girl. Which is my girl, said the adult black-haired man. The little black-haired girl ran to her closet and from there took out a suitcase. This one's for you, said the black-haired girl, handing her the suitcase. Thank you so much, Son. Issei wondered, who is Soten? The scene changed again, but this time the brunette returned to the bathroom looking at the mirror, only that his reflection was not there. In the mirror was a black-haired man with red eyes. When did you think to wake up? Said the black-haired man who was in the mirror. What are you talking about? Issei asked. Wake up? Issei opened his eyes realizing he was on the bathroom floor. The brunette got up, looked at the mirror and saw his reflection. What's happening to me? Said the brunette, grabbing his head. Issei opened the bathroom door and walked out. He came to where the girls were. I'm already awake, Issei asked, gaining the girls' attention. No, he's still unconscious, said the blue-haired girl. Well, then we have to wait for Kiba to wake up so we can start the search, said Issei. Meanwhile, at Core Academy, Rias's entourage and Sona's entourage were talking about the disappearance of Kiba and Kaneko. So what are we going to do? Sona asked. There we have to go out and look for them and pray to Satan so that they don't meet, Issei. Rias said. Well, we know that Issei is in the church, we would have to send someone in case they are there, but since you and your entourage can't, I'll send Saji, said Sona. It's okay, Rias said with some sadness in her eyes. Sona stood up and looked at one of her servants, Saji. Are you going to go see if Hyoudou Kiba and Tujo Kaneko are with Issei in the church? Sona said if they are, contact me immediately. Understood, the blonde leaving the room. Well, while he goes to church, we have to go out and look for them in the city, said Sona. Half an hour later, Saji was about to enter the church. He opened the door and saw Issei, Kaneko and the church envoys. He looked around the place looking for Kiba but he didn't find him. The brunette turned and spoke. Hey Saji, what are you doing here? They sent me to look for Kaneko and Kiba, said the blonde. Well, Kiba is in the room unconscious, said Issei, scratching the back of his neck. He was what Saji managed to say. At that moment Saji sat next to Issei and the three girls. Issei told him about the fight between Zenobia and Kiba and that is why he is unconscious. And that's what happened, said the brunette, finishing telling what happened. I understand, Saji sighed and took out his cell phone to tell his president. But Issei snatched it from him and smashed it onto the ground. My cell phone. Saji shouted. Are you going to call Sona Kaishu and say, Issei, I'm sorry but I couldn't allow it. If you were to do it she would be prevented from helping Zenobia and Irina. But I had to damage my cell phone, Saji said with a lost look with his cell phone in his hand. Was the first thing that came to mind, Issei said, scratching the back of his head and sticking out his tongue. The girls just looked at the scene with some gratitude, changing the subject. They knew what time Zenobia spoke. Issei looked at his watch and found 4. Not for anything, it's just that this Kiba guy hasn't gotten up and he's been there for 2.5 hours, Zenobia said. 2 hours later. Kiba had just gotten up and they were ready to leave. Hyoudou said he would help them so they could destroy Excalibur. Kaneko said he would help them so he could help Kiba and Issei. and Saji had no choice but to help. The six decided that Zenobia and Irina would go towards the SUS and Kaneko, Saji, Kiba and Issei would go north. The four demons were walking through a forest until they heard something coming from an abandoned almizan. Fried came out with the fast swords and the transparent sword. "Ha, so we have guests," Fried said. Kiba saw the swords and attacked. Kaneko took out her cell phone and sent a message to Zenobia. But none of them saw the little bat that disappeared in a medical circle. Kiba and Fried clashed swords. Fried punched Kiba in the stomach, making him step back a few times. Kiba looked at him angrily and launched himself again, but the renegade Abia disappeared from Kiba's sight, appearing behind him. When he was going to cut him, Kiba reacted and blocked the attack with his sword. Issei stands behind Kiba and touches him with Draig's glove and dice boss. Bus transfer? I think it's called body transfer. If I'm wrong, excuse me and tell me how it is. Issei transferred two boys to Kiba. He does this by gaining more power and summoning a lot of swords that head towards him, who narrowly avoids him. Kiba and Issei jump back, leaving Saji and Kaneko watching the entire fight in silence. Irina and Zenobia appear from behind the demons, launching themselves into the attack. Kiba was not far behind and also launched into the attack. Fried blocked an attack from Irina with Quick Excalibur and blocked an attack from Zenobia boyfriend with Transparent Excalibur, but he couldn't block Kiba's kick that sent him crashing to the floor. "It's time to go, Fried. You had a lot of fun speaking to a fat man coming out of the abandoned factory. Valper Galilei. Grito Kiba." Fried stood up and stood next to the now called Valper. The renegade threw a ball of light, cutting down those present. When the light disappeared, neither Fried nor Valper were there immediately. Kiba, Zenobia and Irina jumped to look for them, leaving three demons behind. When the brunette was going to run, someone spoke. "Where are you going?" The brunette turned around and was shocked. In front of him were Rias, Aquino and Asia. Issei took a step back. He was going to turn around to run, but Rias stepped forward and grabbed his arm. "Where are you going?" Rias said. "Away from you," said the brunette without looking her in the eyes. The redhead was shocked for a few moments. "Yes. I'm still your emissarius and you're not going anywhere," she screamed, coming out of shock. Issei looked down and clenched his fists. He wanted to run and hug Rias, but the memory of how Raizer raped Rias was still fresh and he couldn't look his emissarius in the face. He couldn't protect her. Tears fell down the brunette's face. Rias saw that and approached him little by little, thinking that she was wrong to yell at her. "Issei. Sorry, I didn't mean to shout." Rias was interrupted when the brunette rushed at her, giving her a hug with all his might. The redhead at first didn't know how to respond, but after a few seconds she returned the hug. "Forgive me, I didn't have the means to protect you from that unfortunate man," the brunette spoke, tightening the hug a little. Rias knew what he was talking about, but it wasn't her fault. "It's not your fault," said the red-haired girl. The brunette moved away from the redhead about 2 meters. "I am Bucho, but I have something important to do." The brunette spoke and then ran off to where Kiba, Zenobia and Irina left. "Forgive me, but I promised Irina and Zenobia that I would help them," the brunette thought. Rias was going to go after Issei, but Sona stopped her, holding her hand. "Where are you going?" Rias. Sona spoke. "You can't go after him just by giving him that hug, and you already put a rope around his neck." Rias lowered her head, a little sad and frustrated at not being able to go and help her. "My brother, nor the Raizer, had to know that my entourage and I had contact with Issei." Rias and spoke in a serious tone. "Don't even worry, no one will say anything," said Sona. "Thank you," Rias said. Rias and Sona, along with their entourage, left the place to look for Kiba before he meets Issei and worsens the brunette's situation. With Issei, he was kneeling in a lake looking at his reflection in the water. His eyes were red for a few seconds, but then they returned to that honey color that characterizes him. "Hey Draig," the brunette began to speak. "Being tired, I'm going to sleep." A green sphere formed in Issei's hand. "Calm down, mate. Rest, you deserve it," Draig spoke into the sphere. The brunette closed his eyes and fell back towards the grass. "Hey boy, wake up." "5 more minutes, Mom," the brunette spoke. 5 minutes or something, wake up I tell you. Little by little the brunette opened his eyes to get used to the light. "At what time is it?" Issei asked. "It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon." When the brunette heard that, he stood up suddenly. What? The brunette shouted, it has to be a mistake. I couldn't have been asleep for 19 hours, Issei whispered. The brunette looked to his right and saw a pretty brunette who looked familiar. Who are you? The brunette asked. It is rude to ask someone else's name without seeing yours. Sorry, hi, Issei called me. It's a pleasure, said Issei, giving a smile. Don't worry, I called myself. The brunette couldn't hear the name because everything turned black. Where am I? The brunette whispered in a low voice. Issei did not hear anything and began to walk little by little. A light appeared in the distance. The brunette looked at it and began to walk towards the light. When she was close to the light, the brunette extended his right arm to touch her, but at that moment he came to. He saw that he was in the same place where he had been lying down and slept to rest. What is happening? It wasn't day because now it is night. What is happening to me? Issei thought, seeing that it was dark. The brunette stood up from the grass where he was and began to walk, but when he took the first step, he felt a presence of great power that came from a few meters from where he was. He felt the presence of Kiba and Zenobia just as well, but it was not as big as the first one he felt. The brunette without tutubing began to run towards where the presence of Kiba and Zenobia was. Hours before, Raizer and his entourage were searching the south side of the city for any clue as to where Kiba is. When they suddenly felt an aura of great power, everyone looked up and saw a fallen angel with 10 wings on his back. And in front of them was Irina on the floor and Fried, taking away the sword. Look who just arrived, I speak. Fried, nothing more and nothing less than Gremory and his disgusting followers. We don't have to go free anymore, said the fallen angel. Raizer was about to say something when the exorcist took out a small ball from his pocket, threw it on the ground, and a light blinded the Gremory. When the light dispersed, they could only see Issei's friend on the floor. There was no sign of the fallen angel or Fried. Raizer invoked a communication circle to communicate what happened to Sona. Tell me, Raizer, you already found Kiba? Sona spoke. No, but I need you to come immediately. I found Issei's friend and she is badly injured, Raizer said. Okay, I'll go right away, Sona said, canceling the communication. Not a minute passed when a magic circle was formed on the ground with the shield of the Citri house. Well, Raizer, we're here, Sona spoke, leaving the magic circle along with her entourage. That was fast, Raizer said in disbelief. Well, Raizer, are you going to tell me what happened here and why Kaneko has Shido-san on her back? Sona said in a monotonous voice. Well, actually, I don't know what happened to her when we arrived. She was on the floor. It's a shame. Apparently she had a fight with the renegade exorcist Fried Selzen and lost. There is also a fallen angel. When the redhead left those last words, she became serious. Sona noticed that and nodded for him to continue. Raizer saw that and said, but it wasn't just any fallen angel, it was a Kokobile. Everyone present was surprised. Kokobile was Grigory's cadre. The situation for the demons was getting more complicated. Suddenly a wave of energy was felt. This energy came from the academy. The queen of Raizer spoke. The redhead nodded and then turned to see her friend. Let's go, Raizer said. Sona nodded, created a magic circle and disappeared with her entourage, who had been left out of the whole situation. Raizer looked at her entourage and disappeared in a magic circle. Current time, the chestnut tree arrived at the place where he felt the presence of Zenobia and Kiba. But he didn't see anyone or the person who emanated so much power, alone in a small hut. Issei walked up to the hut and little by little he began to open the door. When he opened it completely, he didn't see anyone inside. He saw that in the center of what looked like an open room, he heard a sound. The chestnut tree walked towards it and saw that there was a staircase that took him down. Issei began to go down the stairs. It wasn't long before he saw a light coming from the end of the room. The brunette arrived at what looked like a laboratory. Out of instinct, the chestnut tree jumped to his right, dodging a spear of light. Wow, I didn't think you would abadire, as the chestnut tree heard behind him. When Issei turned to see who it was that threw that spear at him, he saw 4 people. It could be said that all 4 were men. Who are you? Issei spoke. Wow, the boy has the guts to speak to the one in the right corner. The man was tall and fat. His hair was black with a not so exaggerated but long beard. He wore a combat kimono with red armor. Like this, he had black combat boots. The kimono and armor are like Madara Uchihas. How fun it is, don't you think so? Brother spoke to the one who was in the wing center of the fat man. He was tall and very thin, his hair was a light orange color, he had a freckle on his face and he was wearing a light green jacket, a blue sweater under the jacket, Eltichar breathes and black combat boots. Yes, it is Brother Ha, spoke the one who was winged with the orange-haired man. He was identical to the orange-haired boy, only he was wearing a light green sweater with a blue jacket. Quiet, the one who seemed to be the leader, spoke. This one was in the right corner. He was wearing black full-body armor. You could only see his eyes, which were sky blue that seemed to glow in the dark. Now tell me, boy, what your name is. You know it's rude to mention someone's name without giving yours, said Issei. Ah, the brothers laughed. Boy, do you think you're in a position to demand that the leader spoke? I think they are right. The brunette answered. He called me Hyoudou Issei. Well, Hyacinth, once you've seen this place, you'll have to die, said the leader, teasing the brunette, but don't worry, only one will face you. The brunette sighed with relief, knowing that he was no match for the opponent team, who seemed to be at the level of a Raizer or maybe more. Peter, you will face him, said the leader. The brothers were going to complain, but a look from the knight in black armor silenced them. With that said, the leader and the brothers went down a hallway, getting lost in the darkness. Only the brown one and the fat one, who apparently called Peter, remained in the place. He doesn't seem to be able to, Issei thought. But his thought was interrupted when he had to jump to avoid a powerful blow. Wow, you have talent, huh boy, why don't we stop relaxing and get serious, said Fat Peter. Fine, but then don't complain if he beats you, the brunette spoke. Issei summoned his boosted gear and Fat Peter summoned a lightsaber. Interestingly, I never thought for the life of me that I was going to fight with the Hyoudou, the fallen angel spoke. The brunette was going to speak but quickly had to dodge a move from his opponent. Issei was about to kick his opponent, but the fallen angel was no longer in his position. He was now in front of the brunette. Peter grabbed Issei by the neck and slammed him to the ground, then kicked him in the rib, sending him crashing against the wall. That's all the big red dragon has to give. Ha! How pathetic you are, nothing more than a child playing an adult game, he asked you with mockery and seriousness at the same time. I am not powerful, but I swear I will finish you. The brunette said / shouted, launching himself into the attack, but the fallen angel was waiting for him. Issei kicked him in the face, but Peter just ducked to avoid the attack, grabbed him by the leg and sent him crashing against the soul. The brunette spit out blood from the impact. The fallen angel quickly stepped on his face with so much power that it bent his nose. He told you, no boy, to be serious, no boy to have mercy. I don't care if you are a brat, I will finish you, said Peter. Boost, 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 explosion was what was heard from the red quantilet. The brunette gave him a strong blow to the leg that was on his face, causing the fallen angel to lose his balance for a few moments. Enough time for the brunette to stand up and kick him in the back, sending him against the wall. Fat Peter came out unharmed as if nothing had happened. Ha! Well, I like it that way. I'll show you my true power, said Peter, raising his arms so that a bunch of swords of light appeared surrounding Issei. They fell under the hands and all the swords were directed at Issei. You need me? The brunette heard in his head. Suddenly a katana made of pure darkness appeared in the brunette's right hand. When the lightsabers were going to hit Issei, the brunette moves the katana he had diagonally, making almost all the swords disappear. A sword of light managed to hit him in the left leg, causing him to fall to his knees with laboured breathing. The katana disappeared as if it never existed. The fallen angel was a little impressed, but when he saw that Issei fell to his knees, he quickly approached to give him the thank you. When he was close, he didn't expect the chestnut to hit him with a shot dragon, leaving him between life and bite. I think it's dragon shot. If not, sorry, and let me know what it is in the comments. The brunette approached him and saw that he was conscious. He stuck it on the wall so he could talk better. Who is your boss and what does he say? Issei asked the fallen man. Peter opened my eyes little by little. He felt tired. He seemed very confident. Well, I won't lose anything in telling you, the fallen man spoke. My boss is Kokobile. He is one of Grigori's cadre. He plans to destroy this city so that a war is created again. What? Issei shouted, and as he was stopped, the brunette spoke calmer. You simply have to kill 4 of the 5 cello holders, said the fallen one. What is that thing about cello owners? This city has a large explosive cello. The only way to stop it is to kill 4 cello holders. And who are the seal holders? Well, I'm Hasai. You can imagine who the others are. The brunette nodded. He made a chot dragon and killed the fallen one. Well, there are only 3 left. The brunette stared at the fallen body for a few seconds, turned around and walked down the hallway where the other fallen angels had gone. When he reached the exit, he realized that he was on a small mountain on the outskirts of Kuro. Fence. So the young man was able to win. Issei heard a voice that came from the sky. The brunette looked up to realize that the 2 orange-haired men were there. Issei didn't have much strength to fight too. "This will be your end, boy," said the orange-haired man in the blue jacket. "Hey Fred, let's finish this quickly," said the one in the green jacket. "I know. That's what I have planned," George said, the one in the blue jacket. Fred launched himself with a spear of light ready to pierce Issei's tea, but the brunette stepped aside, avoiding the fallen man, but he didn't count on the other to also launch himself and hit him in the face, sending him crashing into the mountain. Issei was left in a small crater when he was going to leave. He only felt another blow that crashed him into the ground. The brunette stood with difficulty since he did not have much energy. At that moment he felt a little bit of heat. Issei looked at the sky and saw how Fred had a giant ball of fire in his hands. "With this I will finish you," he said. "Sheet, if only I were stronger," I thought. "But if you are sick," someone said in his mind. "Who are you?" he asked. "You will soon know," he responded by sleeping for a few minutes. At that Issei closed his eyes. "So you gave up?" How the fallen one spoke. "Now die," he said, screamed, throwing the fireball. When the large fireball was centimeters away from touching Issei, it disappeared and appeared behind the fallen man who had thrown the ball at him. "Die," said the brunette to make a sword appear and cut off the fallen man's head in just seconds. "Brother," George shouted as he was going to attack, but Issei opened his eyes, showing very strange red eyes that emanated a great power that left the fallen man paralyzed, which the brunette took advantage of to appear in front of him and pierce his heart, killing him instantly. At that moment, Issei fell to the ground, holding his head and closing his eyes tightly due to the pain, but this only lasted a few seconds since Issei stood up again and his eyes were normal. The red they had already gone. The only thing he had was the katana. "What happened?" I thought, seeing the 2 fallen dead. "I don't know what happened, but I have to go back quickly before time runs out," he said to himself and started running towards the academy. It was far away, but he knew many shortcuts to get there. In the academy we see that there is a great barrier around the school. This barrier was put up by the Citri clan, while Rias and her entourage were on the athletics field fighting against Kokobile. Rias and the others were fighting with Kokobile's Cerberus while he is sitting on what looks like a floating throne, and on the ground below him was Fred the renegade exorcist and Galilee, who was creating the most powerful sacred sword by putting together the pieces of Excalibur. Outside the barrier was a man dressed in black armor. The only thing that could be seen were those blue eyes that seemed to shine. The man had the sword buried in the ground while holding the handle with both hands. "It seems like Kokobile-sama is winning. I thought, I guess there's no need for me to go there." The armored man was being watched by Sona and his entourage on the other side of the barrier. "So you managed to get here," the man in armor said without turning around. "Say," Sona thought, watching the brunette arrive. "It was difficult. I'm not going to lie to you," said Issei behind the man. The man turned to look at Issei. "Because I have come this far, I will tell you my name," he said. "I am Hades," he said, taking off his helmet and showing his face to Issei. The man looked young. He was not over 20 years old. He had black hair and blue eyes. Issei was surprised. He was about to fight a Greek god. "Don't worry, kid. I'm not that Hades," said the black-haired man, confusing Issei. "Kokobile-sama believed me with Hades' genes, but we are different in many ways," he said. "In other words, I'm just a clone or a copy, like you want to call me." The Sona clan doesn't hear any of this because the barrier doesn't allow sound in or out. "Then you will stay there or we will fight," Hades said. Hades took out his sword from its sheath, showing a sword made of pure light. "I made this sword with my power. I called her Lux," he said. Issei took out the sword he was carrying and the 2 attacked. You could only hear how the 2 swords collided with each other. The brunette knew that if that sword touched him, he would be in serious trouble. Issei gave a diagonal cut, but the black-haired man managed to dodge it and counter with a kick to Issei's abdomen that sent him crashing against the barrier and then falling to the ground and remaining on his knees. Sona and her entourage saw this, worried and helpless because they could not do anything. They were afraid that if they opened the barrier, the man in armor would enter, complicating things. Issei got up and launched the attack, but Hades moved so fast that he couldn't see him. He only felt how his back was cut that hurt like hell. But when he turned to attack, he was no longer there. He had disappeared again but appeared next to the chestnut tree, giving him a strong blow on the cheek. But that wasn't all. Before Issei stood up, Hades grabbed him by the face and slammed him into the ground. The chestnut tree no longer had much strength. This guy was on another level. What could he do? The brunette wondered as Hades slammed him into the floor again. The brunette appeared in his mental space, but it was not Drake who was in front of him, but a man with black hair and wearing a blue kimono. So you need power, Issei, said the man. For you? Issei asked. First let me take care of him and then we'll talk, said the. Issei opened his eyes, showing red eyes but with a different design. Hades quickly jumped back, because those eyes emanated great power. What's wrong? You were scared, Issei said, amused. Then the brunette began to pass his hand over the blade of his katana and he was surrounded by a black aura. Today will be your end, Hades-kun, he said, to disappear and appear behind Hades, ready to cut off his head, but the fallen man narrowly avoided it. Oh, you were able to dodge it, said the brunette, very amused. He became faster than the black-haired man thought. He was going to attack but had to jump back again to avoid Issei's sword. The two looked into each other's eyes with determination, then Issei ran to the attack. Hades jumped behind the brunette's back and in one quick movement he turned around and cut off Issei's head. You put up a good fight but you're still not at my level, he said. But then he feels a pain in his stomach. He looks towards where he felt the pain and sees a sword. When he looks ahead he sees Issei with a smile. You're already finished, I just pierced your stomach, said Issei, and then made a diagonal cut, removing the sword from Hades's body. Now you also lost a lung and a rib, he said. The black-haired man could only see Issei with a small smile. Thank you, he said, and fell silent. Issei looked at him for a while. Apparently he was in a lot of pain, he said, and then fell back to the floor. The red eyes disappeared and Issei looked at the black sky. He got up and walked over the barrier like that. Sona understood that Issei was going to enter, so she made a small crack in the barrier for Issei to enter. Then they closed it again. Rias and her entourage were in endless combat against Kokobil's Cerberi. In that same place Zenobia and Kiba were fighting against Freedom. Freed had the sacred sword that was supposedly the most powerful. A Cerberus was about to attack Asia, but then Issei arrives and kills it with an attack. Asen asked Asia to jump in and hug the brunette. It's been a while. Hey, Asia, said Issei, reciprocating the hug. But it was not the time for that, so he quickly separated from the hug and then launched a dragon shot, killing all the Cerberians. Sorry if that's not how to spell dragon shot, I searched but couldn't find it. If you know how to spell it, leave it in the comments. So the Hyoudou came to save the day, Kokobil said gracefully. But you're late, in 1 minute the whole city will be destroyed. Everyone present was scared, except for Issei, who already knew it. Let me tell you, little bird, that your plan went to shit, Issei spoke, gaining everyone's attention, even Kokobil himself. What do you mean? The cadre asked curiously. Issei looked at him seriously. I destroyed the seal boxes to stop the bomb, he said. Rias, her entourage, and Zenobia were confused about what bomb they were talking about. So you killed the Black Squad, Kokobil said. It's interesting that a boy like you will kill them. Did Issei kill someone, were the questions that Rias' entourage asked themselves. Since the bomb is stopped I will have to change plans, said the fallen man. But what bomb are you talking about? You asked Rias. Since that plan has failed I don't see any problems in telling you this is Kokobil. My plan was to destroy this city. I thought that would bother his parents because this city is in Citri and Gremory territory. Then I thought if I destroyed the entire city they would get upset and a war would start, he said, surprising everyone. When he created the bomb it needed to be constantly given energy, so he created the 4 seals. I used 4 fallen ones with Great Dane power like that of a high-class demon. These fallen ones were going to provide energy to the bomb. So in order to stop her they had to kill the 4 fallen ones. That way the bomb wouldn't have the energy to explode, said Issei. Correct, stated the fallen one. The girls and Kiba saw Issei because he killed 4 fallen people and was still normal. Another person would have been broken because of that. Since they ruined my first plan, I will have to resort to the second I speak, Kokobil. I will kill the heiresses. The latter surprised everyone. Issei became very serious at that moment. I won't let you touch them, he said. Then Kokobile began to throw a light throw at Issei, but he missed it. Zenobia and Kiba continued attacking. Zenobia gets tired and decides to get serious and brings out Durandal, which surprised many, even Kokobile himself was surprised. As possible, none of the tiers of magic were capable of creating a carrier for Durandal, Balba said. Unlike Irina, I am an original carrier, she said, launching the attack against Fried. Something that Hyoudou took advantage of to get closer to Balba. Balba Galilei Kiba said, gaining Baba's attention, I am a survivor of the Sacred Swords experiments. No, you really killed me. I was the only thing, Balba said. Everyone was paying attention to this. I was only able to be reborn to live as a demon, said the blonde. To then give a cold look, I couldn't die. Before avenging my companions, he said to go for it. Careful, Hyoudou. You shouted. Kaneko and Issei ran to save Rubio, but it was too late. Kokobile had thrown a spear of light that created an explosion. Balba had covered himself with a shield so that the attack would not touch him. Kiba. Grito Issei. I avoid a direct attack. I speak Kokobile demon rat. Fried. Yes, boss. Asked the exorcist. Kill those demons quickly, said the fallen one. The boss left Fried with a twisted look. The exorcist attacks Asia and Issei, who were together at the time, but Zenobia appears with Durandal in hand. Every time Fried attacked Zenobia, he dodged it and hit him. Due to Zenovia's carelessness, Fried was about to cut it, but Issei appeared and hit him, sending him to the ground. Don't forget about me, he said. Zenobia watched as Hyoudou got up only to fall again. I had heard about a guy who escaped, said Balba approaching Kiba, but who would have imagined that he became a demon? I am very grateful for your contributions. Thanks to you, the experiments were finally successful. Success? Kiba asked. The power of each of you was not enough to wield a sacred sword on your own, which led me to a solution, said Balba. I simply had to take their power. Hyoudou opened his eyes wide. So, I found a way to crystallize it, said Galilei, raising his arms to the sky with a small crystal in his fingers. This is a crystal that contains every last bit of their power. Everyone else died because their bodies couldn't handle the power. Fried laughed/screamed with a crazy face, attacking Issei, who dodged him along with Zenobia. When I remember that, I feel terribly excited about killing someone. Zenobia said, seeing the crystal that looked like the one they had given to Irina so she could carry a sacred sword. Those hypocrites rejected me as a heretic, however, they continued to use my research results, Balba said, and then made a depraved face. If it were Michael, he probably would have taken the power of the people without killing them. Then, there was no need to kill us, Kiba said, standing up and looking at Balba with anger. But they were simply materials for those experiments, Galilei responded. What was I going to do with you if I didn't have you? We believed that we were going to serve the Lord. And we resisted unbearable pain, said the blonde, clenching his fists helplessly. Materials. Provide. How cruel, said Asia, who was healing Rias, and Aquino, who also looked sadly at Kiba. Balba threw the crystal at Hyoudou's feet. Take it if you want. We have the technology to mass-produce even more refined crystals, he said. So that's it, Issei said, attracting everyone's gaze. God is dead. He ended up leaving everyone surprised. Even Kokobile himself never thought that this boy would be able to decipher it. Zenobia and Asia were surprised but quickly looked at Kokobile to see if it was true. Hello, boy, you never imagined that you would be able to decipher it, said the father, confirming what Issei had said, and immediately Asia fell to the floor, unconscious from such information. If it weren't for my self-control, it is most likely that I would have also fallen, said Zenobia, looking at Asia. Kokobile summoned several servers who launched an attack against the demons and the exorcist. Issei immediately dodged the guards and went straight towards the cadre. I unsheathed the katana. Kokobile created a sword of light. The brunette stood in front of the fallen man and they started a fight. You could only hear how the katana collided with the lightsaber, but Issei was very tired. Because of his carelessness, Kokobile buried the sword in his sisti. The demons and the exorcist worried that they had already finished off the servers. They approached an Issei who was on the ground lying in his own BLD while Kokobile had risen to look at him from the sky. Akino tried to lift Asia to heal him, but she was still unconscious and Rias couldn't because hers was slower and she would be an easy target for Kokobile. The brunette little by little lost the shine in his eyes. Issei was in a dark place. He didn't know what to do. He had to go back or Kokobile would kill Rias and her friends. It's interesting that even in death you worry about your friends. I heard the chestnut but I couldn't see anything. Who's there? I asked. In front of him appeared a man with blue hair. You had blue eyes. He was wearing a blue kimono. Who are you? Issei asked again. Don't worry, you'll know soon, he said, and then touched the brunette's forehead. When God arrived on Earth, there were already some powerful creatures such as yokai and dragons. There were also humans, the weakest race, but these humans already praised some gods that existed on this earth such as the Greek gods and the Norse gods. There were also some beings not as powerful as the elves, the fairies. God wanted something just like the other gods, so he gave life to Adam and Eve, but beyond that he had to have a place for them to live, and he created the Garden of Eden. God saw that other beings had armies, that is why he created the angels. The strongest were seraphim. One of the seraphim was so powerful that he could battle God for hours. This was a seraph with the grace of light. Male was so strong that he thought he deserved God's position and tried to betray him. But luckily God found out first and sent Male to the underworld where he met Hades, the god of death. Hades is a Greek god who represents death. Quickly Male, who was now Satan, fought against Hades for the underworld. The fight lasted for days but Satan managed to win, but since he wanted Hades on his side he offered him the second kingdom of hell. Where Hades ruled when God sent Male to hell he didn't know much about that place. He only knew that hell was a place made up of two kingdoms. Purgatory and the underworld. The underworld was a place where the darkest creatures of this world lived, and purgatory was where the souls went. He sent Male to that place so that he would hopefully die. It didn't take long for Satan to have the entire underworld under his control. He could no longer use light, now he only used darkness. One day Satan posed as a snake and snuck into the Garden of Eden so that Adam and Eve would sin and cause God to be distracted, and managed to get some angels to join him, which he achieved by giving life to the clan of demons, and with the sharpness of his darkness he created thousands more demons, creating the 72 pillars of the underworld. But of course before that Satan eliminated all the creatures that lived there, putting an end to various razas such as goblins, etc. While Satan gave life to his new kingdom, God made a deal with Hades and other gods of Olympia and North America, so that the rotten souls would go to purgatory and the pure souls would go up to paradise, which the gods accepted. A few years passed and the humans descended from Adam and Eve had already prospered. In those years Jesus, the Son of God, the Messiah who was actually God, was in combat with Satan. While Satan was causing humans to fall, Jesus was trying to free them. Jesus died and was resurrected, thus giving free will to humans descended from Adam and Eve. God knew that he had to make a peace treaty because the demon clan was getting stronger every day. Satan was their leader, someone extremely powerful, and he had 4 generals who had the nickname of the 4 demon kings. There was Lucifer, Leviathan, Ajuka, Asmodeus. They were the 4 most powerful demons after Satan. A while passed and everything was calm until Azazel fell, and with him many more angels, thus giving life to the fallen angels. They did not lose the blessing of the light like Satan did. Satan wanted to kill God, but he sent him to the underworld and took away the blessing of light. On the other hand, the fallen angels had fallen because they feared impure thoughts, which is why God did not take away the blessing of light. The fallen angels had created the organization called Grigori. With this event the 3 factions had been formed. One day Satan visited the human world, more specifically a small town outside Camelot. It was in that town where he met an appealing woman who won his heart. Her name was Nicole. Years later, her first child was born, Nicole, and she named him Issei. Satan wanted his son to be born in a world without so much hatred and spoke with God and Azazel to create a peace treaty, which they accepted. God saw this treaty to create more angels and increase their ranks. He had lost many angels and needed to make more. He also spoke with King Arthur to build some churches, which he accepted, and God gave him Excalibur. Gabriel was an angel that God made as a girl. He wanted her to grow and learn from humans and love them. Today, 10-year-old Gabriel is visiting the human world, but she was not the only one who is also there. While Gabriel was blonde, Issei was brown. That day they met. She and him did not get along when they met, but over time everything changed. Issei loved Gabriel as if he were his sister, and she loved him as if he were her brother. On Issei's 15th birthday, he and Gabriel decided to meet in a town to spend the day together. She walked away from him for a moment because she saw how a creature took away one of the villagers and decided to chase him into the forest. She was afraid and didn't know how to get back. She began to scream to help her with that. She felt them hugging her. Calm down. Everything would be fine was what she heard, and she knew whose voice it was. How do you know? She said. Because I will always protect you. After all, you are my sister. I love you, Issei, she said, giving him a big hug. After that, Issei and Gabriel's ties became stronger. Today was Issei's 18th birthday, and as usual he would go to the human world to see Gabriel. Remember to arrive at 6, Satan said, looking at Issei. Today the Demon King had planned to throw him a big party. Lose it, he said, and left the house. She looks a lot like you, Nicole said, hugging Satan from behind. He looks more like you, he said to return the hug. It was already 6 o'clock and the brunette was getting home. He had had a good time with Gabriel. I'm here, he said, entering the house. Go shower and change, Nicole said. The guests won't be long. The brunette went up to his room, took a bath and got ready to wait for the guests. Little by little all the guests began to arrive. Issei had come down to greet him and chat with some friends. Hello, Issei, how are you? Red-haired man asked. Well, thank you, Issei responded. I present to you my son, said the man, pointing to a red-haired boy named Xiaticus Gremory, future leader of the clan. I'm very pleased. I'm Issei. The brunette greeted the boy, future king of the underworld. The party continued and Issei spent his time meeting future clan leaders. Dad, where is Mom? I need her, Issei said. I don't know. He must be in the room, the king of the underworld said without paying attention. The brunette went up to his mother's room, and when he opened the door the one he saw left him unable to speak. He approached his mother, who was lying on the floor with a hole in her entire abdomen. Issei took her in his arms and unleashed a power so great that the entire underworld was unconscious. Only the Demon King could withstand such power. Satan went up to the room where his son was to find out what was happening, and what he saw left him the same as Issei, with the exception that he did not unleash his power. Satan saw that in the room there were some white feathers and some black. This, my friends, is war, thought the king. Satan was an intelligent person, so he knew that if he declared war on the fallen and on God, he would lose. Satan devised a plan so that this would not happen. The plan would be to attack the base of the fallen and in the process the churches that God has, but that was not the whole plan. He had an as up his sleeve, and that was the feathers that had remained of the fallen and of the angels. If Satan attacked the fallen and left an angel's feather, then they would think that the demons were allied with the angels, and it was also the same on the other side to make God believe that he has an alliance with the fallen. Thus the war would be even for all three sides. A month after Nicole's death, Issei just started training to kill all the fallen and those angels. The brunette had fallen into an abyss of pain and suffering. He was no longer smiling. He was now someone cold with a thirst for blood. That would be the plan, Satan said. In front of him were his 4 generals and his son. And when do we start? Lucifer asked. Tonight, Satan responded. We must assign the 2 groups, Leviathan said. I already thought about what Issei said. Those present paid attention to him. I will go alone and finish off the fallen. But what are you saying, Issei? That's crazy, Lucifer and Leviathan said. I'm not interested. I'll go alone, and that's it, Issei said to stop and leave the meeting. Well, you heard it. This is Satan, then you and I will put an end to the churches. It was night and everyone was preparing to attack Satan, and the 4 kings with a small troop would attack the churches located in Camelot. Issei would only attack a small base of the fallen. The chestnut man managed to sneak to the center of the base. There were almost all the fallen from that base. There were a total of 100 fallen. Issei quickly made an appearance, gaining the attention of everyone present with a quick movement. Issei invoked his sword and began to kill. Children, women, the elderly and men were massacred by the chestnut tree. That place was a bloodbath. Due to carelessness, a fallen man almost attacked Issei with a loose spear but was saved by a man and a brown woman. At that moment Issei did not give it any importance and continued with his killing. The massacre had ended and the only thing that could be seen was bodies all over the place and a lake of BLD. In the center was Issei covered in BLD with his sword in his right hand and his eyes closed. The two demons appeared in front of Issei. When the brunette felt their presence he opened his eyes and the two demons felt overwhelming terror from those BLD red eyes. "What are you doing here?" asked the brunette. "His father sent us the man, he said, to just watch his back but not to get in his way." "I agree with Issei." "Well, what are their names?" "I am Marta Hyoudou," said the woman. "I am Tomas Hyoudou," said the man. "Well, it's a pleasure to meet you," said Issei. "The pleasure is ours," the two demons said at the same time. A month had passed and the war was at its peak. The chestnut tree was on one of the battlefields in the north. Around it were only the bodies of all the fallen and angels that were there. "How boring," Issei said on top of a pile of bodies. "Sir, we should move to the south side of the battle," Marta spoke about. "And why didn't your husband come?" the brunette asked curiously, since the two demons were almost never separated from him. "He went with his father to the west side." Bala Bala was the voice that the two demons heard in the sky. Issei didn't have time to know who it was since he had to dodge a spear of light. "You're fast if you dodge that." Issei looked at the sky and smiled out of pure amusement. "You know, I thought this would be boring," he said, "but having a dad come makes this more interesting." "I only came to see if the rumors that you were so powerful were true," said the cadre. This is Marta Kokabile." Issei heard the name but he already knew who it was, so he didn't give it much importance. Issei looked at the cadre and in a quick movement he was already face to face with the cadre. Kokabile was a little surprised but quickly reacted and summoned a spear to stab the chestnut, but Issei only moved his sword and the spear broke. The cadre quickly moved away from the chestnut tree. "Bala, you are more than you seem," Kokabile said, looking at an Issei who only looked at him with boredom. "Did you come to talk or to fight?" Issei said boredly. Kokabile became enraged by the demon's attitude and created hundreds of spears, attacking Issei, but he only dodged the spears as if it were nothing. In a quick movement, Issei stood in front of Kokabile to kick him in the stomach, sending the fallen man to the floor, but that was not all. Issei created a sphere of black fire in his left hand. He looked at the fallen man who was getting up, but at that point, Issei threw the sphere but the fallen man managed to dodge it. When the sphere touched the floor, nothing happened. Kokabile was going to laugh when he saw that a pillar of black fire formed from the place where he was. "If I hadn't dodged it right now, I would be dead," though the cadre. Issei saw the fallen man's face and a small smile formed on his face. "Little Birdchan, are you afraid?" Issei spoke/asked. Kokabile looked at the demon and scrunched his face in frustration. When the fallen man was going to speak, Issei appeared next to him and gave him a blow that sent him crashing onto the floor again. Issei was beating up the cadre and Marta saw this in shock. She knew that Issei was strong, but for him to surpass a cadre, that was amazing. Kokabile was on the floor, all sheet from the beating that Issei gave him. "How sad, I expected more from you," said Issei, who raised his sword to end the life of the fallen man. "How sad," Issei hears. The brunette began to look everywhere to find out who was talking. "Look at you, you're just trash looking for revenge." "Who are you?" Issei asked no one. Marta looked at this with doubt. "In your heart you know this is wrong. What do you know about me?" Issei asked mockingly. "I know more than you imagine," said the voice. "But you will never know who you are if you keep hurting your heart." "What are you talking about?" the brunette asked with doubt. "Just asking one question," said the voice. "Is what your mother wanted for you." Issei stayed silent for a while until he felt someone touch him on the shoulder. "Sir, are you okay?" Marta asked, in her eyes. "That's where the worry goes." "Yes, I'm fine," said he. "It's nothing." Issei began walking to return to his father and the other demons. "Won't it kill him?" the demon said/asked, pointing to the fallen one. "Let him live so that it is a warning for them," he said without stopping walking quickly. The demon began to follow Issei. "So, how did it go?" Satan asked the 5 men sitting in front of him. "In the south things got a little complicated, but my troop and I managed to make the fallen and the angels withdraw," said Bowles. "But in the east things got complicated," said Asmodee. "What do you mean?" Satan asked. "We managed to finish off the fallen, but when we were about to finish off the angels, Arthur and his army arrived and complicated everything for us. We lost many and had to retreat. Besides, Arthur is strong with that sword he has. Well, it doesn't matter, we'll figure it out later, Satan said. Well, in the north things were good, said Issei without any feeling. What do you mean? Satan asked. Well, after finishing off the fallen and the angels, Kokabeel appeared, Issei said, earning everyone's gaze. Satan said. Well, I beat him up and then left him to die, Issei said boredly. Did you kill him? Lucifer asked. I left him alive to be a warning to the fallen that the future demon king is stronger than he thought, Issei said with a devilish smile. That's unexpected, Satan said. Well, continuing with the meeting, in the West things were as always a stalemate, no one wanted to back down, not God, not the fallen, much less us. Things are difficult, that Michael is strong, Lucifer said. Don't even mention it, that Azazel too, Leviathan said. There's a reason he's the leader of the fallen. We need to do something big to win this war. Satan said God gets stronger every day. The meeting was over and Issei was lying in his room thinking about that voice and everything it had told him. This is what your mother would have wanted, was what sounded in his mind. Just then they knocked on the door and the chestnut tree gave permission for them to come in. It was Marta. Hello ladies, the brunette greeted me. I know it's late but I would like to talk to you. Issei sits down and looks at the chestnut. What do you want? I ask. I wanted to know how he was doing, said Marta. I'm fine, don't worry. I know we haven't been together for a long time but I know him well, said Marta, and I know that something is wrong with him. Issei looked at her for a few seconds before speaking. Whether I'm wrong or right is none of your business. It's true that it's not my business, he said, but I love you like a son and I know when it's wrong and I don't like it when it's wrong. At that Marta approaches and hugs Issei. Please tell me if you have any problems. She told me I know I'm not her mother but I love you as if I were her. The brunette bacillus for a moment before hugging the brunette and starting to cry. I know that what I'm doing is wrong and that she wouldn't have wanted it but I can't just leave it like that. He said they must die so she will be at peace. Maybe what I do is wrong, said Marta, but you have my support for whatever it is because I love you Issei-kun and I would give my life to make you happy. After all, that is what a mother would do. The years had passed and Issei had the nickname of the god of death for his incredible power and for showing no mercy in battle. One of the chestnut's great feats was to kill the strongest human at that time, King Arthur of Camelot. The king of Camelot possessed the sacred sword Excalibur and with it he killed many demons and the fallen were an obstacle for the demons who sent their best man to defeat him. Flashback years ago, Arthur, the king of Camelot, had killed hundreds of demons and fallen people and was demonstrating it since he was currently surrounded by bodies of fallen people and demons. He cleaned the sacred sword with his clothes and was preparing to leave, but at that moment he felt a terrifying presence that made his blood run high. The man turned and there were two men and a woman standing, but the presence that was felt came from the man who was in the center. Who are they? A frightened Arthur asked. The man in the center, who was brown, looked at him for a few seconds and then appeared behind the human with his head in his hands. Arturo's body fell to the ground. The brunette looked at the blonde's head with boredom. So this is the famous King Arthur who said to the brunette, raising the man's head, how pathetic, he finished and then threw the head to the ground and crushed it. Issei, we already informed your father that the mission was a success, said the other man in the group. Issei, this is Excalibur, said the woman in the group, showing what was King Arthur's sword. Issei took the sword and destroyed it, leaving 7 fragments of the sword. That way no one will be able to get it back, he said. When the group was going to leave, Issei fell to the ground on his knee and began to hold his head because of the pain he felt. Do you think this is what your ancestor would have wanted Issei to hear? You again, what do you want from me? Said / asked a slightly more recovered Issei. I want you to reconsider everything you are doing and become what you should become, the chestnut tree herd. And what should I become, I ask? In what your enemies fear and in what your loved ones love. Fin flashback, Issei was on the battlefield and next to him was neither Marta nor Tomas. Next to him now was Leviathan, one of the 4 demon kings, behind them a troop of 100 demon soldiers. In front of them was their enemy the angels, and commanding the 1,000 angels was only one person, a seraph that Issei recognized instantly, not because of his power, but because of everything he had been through with her. In front of Issei, commanding the 1,000 angels, is Gabriel, who looks at him with affection and love because despite everything he has done, she still sees that older brother who always protected her. Leviathan and the 100 soldiers launched the attack along with the 1,000 angels who did not waste time either. Issei and Gabriel did not move, they were not saying or doing anything, they just looked at each other. She looked at him with affection and he with sadness and a little happiness. He looked at her with sadness because it had been years since their last meeting and now that they saw each other again it was like enemies, but he also looked at her with love because she was fine, she looked healthy and healthy. A whole woman was already cast. Issei doesn't know how long he stayed like that, but when he looked at the battlefield he saw that the angels were winning. There were 500 of them and there were only 10 demons counting Leviathan who seemed to only play with the angels. It didn't take long for them to kill 9 demons, leaving Leviathan alone. Issei let out a sigh and looked at his sister and then looked at the angels, and not a second passed and Issei had already finished off the 500 angels. Gabriel started looking for Issei but couldn't find him until he felt a tap on his shoulder. "Go away," said Issei to disappear again and appear in front of Leviathan. "Let's finish her off," said the demon. "No," Issei responded. "It's a war, you have to kill it, it's an angel," Leviathan said again. "And I said no." "Then I'll do it," said Leviathan, who started to attack Gabriel but Issei stopped him by putting his sword on the demon's neck. "I said no," Issei said with a look that seemed like ice. Leviathan jumped back and started laughing like crazy. "Well, everything went as planned, now I can kill you without problems," he said. "What are you talking about?" Issei said. Gabriel saw this with intrigue but didn't say anything. "You are getting very strong and that is a problem for us," said Leviathan. "I'm going to tell you the story behind this war." Issei looked at him confused but never let his guard down. Flashback: Lucifer, Leviathan, Beelzebub and Asmodeus saw Satan as a father who guided them on the right path and they, like good children, would do anything for him. One day before Issei's 18th party my brother Lucifer spoke. In front of him were the other Maos. "I gathered here to talk about a serious topic." "What is it about?" Beelzebub asked. "The other races think that our father does what God says," Lucifer said a little angry. "They say that our father is God's right hand and that our father is his greatest dear." "That's crazy," Leviathan shouted. "I know, brother," Lucifer said. "That's why I made a plan." "And what is that plan?" Asmodeus asked. "On the day of our younger brother Issei's party we are going to manipulate a young demon to kill our father's wife," said Lucifer, and this plan surprised the other Maos. "There are many flaws in this plan," said Beelzebub. "That's not all," Lucifer said. "We will have the demon who kills her plant some feathers of angels and fallen people to begin our father's fury. So our father will start a war with the other factions," Leviathan said, understanding the plan. "And with our father's power we will become the strongest faction. Many will die but everything will be for a better future as the most powerful," Lucifer finished. The other Maos nodded in approval of the plan. Fin flashback: That's the big story behind this war. Leviathan said looking at Issei, "We also plan what's happening right now." Flashback to the previous day. Now what happened to Lucifer? Leviathan asked. "I want to talk to you about Issei." "Did you summon us to talk about Issei?" Beelzebub asked. "Exactly," Lucifer said. "I don't understand what the problem is," said Asmodeus. "Let me finish," Lucifer said. "Issei currently has the necessary power to give battle to some of us. I'm not saying he's stronger, I'm just saying that he can give us battle and that's bad." "You wonder why it's bad?" "It's bad because his power increases every day and if one day Issei finds out what happened to his mother he will kill us." "But we can defeat him," Leviathan said. "Now we can, but in the future I don't think we can," say Asmodeus. "For that reason Issei must be killed," Lucifer said. "How are we going to do it?" asked Beelzebub. "Our father will be sad but it is the best option," Lucifer said. "We have to make Issei betray us and for that we have planned something that will work no matter what." "Tell us your plan, brother," Leviathan said. "You and I know that there is a spy from the angels among the demons," Lucifer said. "That is why I have been divulging that Issei will be on the northern battlefield so that God would make his play, and that play was to send Gabriel because she is someone special to Issei and he won't touch her. That is why, my brothers, one of you will go with Issei and activate a communication cell with me. I will be with my father. He will not know who the angel is, What our father hears will be how his son refuses to kill an angel and how he threatens one of us. That will be treason and we can kill him. And what will happen to Issei's guardians? Leviathan asked. They will be sent to another place, Lucifer said. Finn flashed back and I was the winner. Leviathan said, looking at Issei, I will be your executioner. Gabriel just looked sadly at Issei. The Mao began to laugh like a madman, and when I kill you I will take that blonde, I will RP her, and when I finish I will take her to the underworld so that the other demons can have fun with her, he said, laughing. Leviathan rushed towards Issei with his sword in hand, ready to cut off his head. When the sword was centimeters from the chestnut's neck, Issei in a matter of a second grabbed him by the face and slammed him against him. Leviathan stood up with difficulty and looked at Issei, and what he saw terrified him. Issei was standing in front of him, and a strange black smoke surrounded him, and his eyes were red with a strange shape in them. His hair had changed to black. A sword formed in his left hand. You will never touch it, he said. I will kill you first. You will be what your enemies fear, and you will be what your loved ones love, was what I heard said about the sword. Itoro Susuro Issei 0. Gabriel was confused because after Issei told Leviathan that he was never going to touch her, Issei grabbed his sword, and after whispering something that he couldn't hear, he saw how Issei appeared behind Leviathan seconds later, slowly turning the head of Leviathan. Mao fell to the floor. Gabriel quickly approached Issei to see how he was doing. Issei said, "What happened to you? Why do you look like that?" Issei returned the hug. "This is me." "What do you mean you were brown?" said Gabriel, separating himself from the hug. "That was just an illusion created to hide the real me," he said. "I don't understand," said a confused Gabriel. "My marriage was going to kill my mother, but thanks to a certain person who cello my power, I was born as Issei, Prince of Demons, but now that the cello has been broken, I was born as Issei, Sparta Demon King, and the descendant of Naruto Sparta, son of Dante Sparta." Minutes before Gabriel hugs Areha, Issei, the now black-haired man, was there without moving, without doing anything, or that was what was seen on the outside, since in his mind Issei was talking to a certain person. "Then let me see if I understood that I speak, Issei. Your name is Yamato and you are the sword of such a Sparta." "Yes," Yamato said. He was a man with blue hair, eyes of the same color, and was wearing a light blue kimono, but that is not your origin. "What are you talking about?" Issei asked. "I want you to listen and don't interrupt me until the end," he said, and Issei just nodded. "In the time before creation, many before God, there was a place called the elemental continent." Issei was going to speak, but Yamato interrupted him. "Let me terminate. In that nation there was a man considered the god of gods for his incredible power. That man was Naruto Sparta. Naruto was the son of Dante Sparta and grandson of the legendary demon Sparta. He was also the son of Diana Uchiha and grandson of the legendary ninja Uchiha Madara." "But what does that have to do with me?" Issei asked. "Let me finish," Yamato said. "As I was telling you, Naruto had many children throughout his life, but it was the son with Kami that begins your story. Kami was the goddess of life, but unfortunately she fell in love with Naruto. When she found out that she was P-Arginin-T, Naruto had already died, and since Naruto still had some enemies, what she did was delay her P-Arginin-Cy for many, many years, and so that no one would notice. Realized she had to disappear. I was looking for a worthy advisor so that the peace that Naruto liked so much to create would last, but none of his children or his grandchildren or his grandson, none of them were worthy. They all let themselves be carried away by hatred and revenge. Over time I disowned them. Naruto was dying, and with him his legacy was disappearing." "How sad," Issei said. "Let me finish," idiot Yamato said angrily. "Since Kami was not there, many gods began to gain power, giving rise to the gods that you know today. The elemental nations also began to disappear. Years and years later, what people here call the biblical God appeared. He is the son of Naruto and Kami. When God created Satan, he gave part of his essence to him, making Satan his biological son. But neither God nor Satan were worthy. God only created the angels and humanity out of envy of the other gods, and Satan, he was envious of his own father. When you were born, I felt the presence of Naruto in you, something I had never felt before. You had Uchiha BLD and Sparta BLD running through your veins. When you were going to be born, I had to seal your BLD and seal myself in you so that your mother would not die. When your mother died, a part of the seal was broken, but today when you found out the truth and what they were going to do to your sister, you broke the seal completely. Issei couldn't believe all this. It was completely crazy. I'm Issei Sparta, a descendant of Naruto who is the son of Dante Sparta, he said. I'm glad you understood everything, Yamato said, happy that he wasn't as idiotic as Naruto was. Yamato touched Issei's forehead and he began to see Naruto's entire life. When Issei stopped seeing Naruto's life, he felt someone hug him. He left his mental space and saw that Gabriel gave him a hug, which he also returned. In the present, Issei had told Gabriel that he was Issei Sparta, Demon King, descendant of Naruto Sparta. She is confused, she didn't know who that person was, but she didn't care. She was happy that he was okay. You have to go back to your father, Issei said. And what will you do? Asked a worried Gabriel. I will end this war, he said. It's okay, Gabriel said, and then hugged him tightly. Don't do something crazy. After that she opened a portal and left. After Gabriel left, Issei returned to his mental space. Hey, what are we doing now? He asked his tenant. You are going to go train to dominate all the power that flows in you, he said. And where are we going? Issei asked. To Dimension 0, he said. Dimension what? Asked a confused Issei. Dimension 0 is a place created by Naruto. Yamato said in that place time is different, 1 day here is 1 year in that dimension. Vala seems like a perfect place to train, said Issei, seeing the potential of the place. Naruto created it because Yamato said besides, you will be in that place for 7 days, which in that place would be 7 years. Okay, let's go. Tomas and Marta had been sent to fight in a different place than Issei. After finishing off their enemies, they went to the underworld to talk to Satan, but at the moment they were going to knock on the door, they heard Satan greet them. He ordered Lucifer to kill Issei's Tridor. The two left there without anyone seeing and created a portal to the human world. What are we going to do now? Asked a worried Martha. I don't know, said Tomas. For now we have to hide. Do you think Issei really betrayed us? Marta asked. She didn't believe Issei betrayed them. I don't think so, he said. For now it's better to keep a low profile until Issei comes back from where he is and clarifies things for us. Leviathan has not returned yet, Beelzebub said to his brother. Lucifer was worried. Leviathan was supposed to be strong, so why did he take so long to kill little Issei? Satan was in his office sad for his son's betrayal, but he was a king and his son had betrayed them, so Issei must die for Tridor. A day had passed and Lucifer sent several domains to the place where he supposed Leviathan was. Great was his surprise when the demons had returned with his dead brother. What made him most angry was seeing that they had cut off his head. That day he had also found out that Marta and Tomas had disappeared. He had planned to kill them, but now they were gone. Lucifer was currently on his way to a meeting that his father called. Now that we are all here, I will tell you why I brought you together. I am speaking of Satan. They are here because I have decided that in 6 days I will attack heaven to put an end to the life of God. Issei had spent 7 years training, and his last year he had met Apis, the dragon goddess of infinity. Flashback: Issei was immersed in this. This was his last year and he had to work strong to put an end to this war. While the black-haired man was meditating, he did not realize that behind him a portal opened and from it a purple dragon appeared. The dragon was confused since he had felt a great power coming from this place. It had been difficult for him to enter, and when he finally managed to enter, all he saw was a completely blank place. The dragon looked around and saw a small cabin in the distance and also saw a demon in a meditative pose with its back turned to him. The dragon was about to speak when the demon got up and turned to see her. What is a dragon goddess doing here? Issei asked, intrigued by the arrival of Apis. I felt great power and I was interested in the simple response she gave. This is my home and I don't want you here, said Issei. In reality, she wanted to deprive her of her new abilities and the dragon would be perfect for this, so she left. She finished moving her arm and Apis felt how a strong wind pushed her until she crashed on the floor. The dragon goddess became enraged and went to attack Issei. Apis was frustrated. She couldn't land a single blow on this insolent demon. He just dodged it as if it were nothing. She got tired of playing and prepared a roar. Issei saw how the roar approached him. The demon gave a small smile and his eyes turned red and then summoned Yamato. When the attack was about to touch him, Issei just cut him off like if it were butter. That's all, said Issei, making the sword disappear. The goddess became angrier and became a little bigger, which was successful for Issei since she wanted to try something. When Apis was going to attack, he saw how a kind of black skeleton formed around the black-haired man. She saw the skeleton and could swear her legs were shaking. The goddess took a few steps back. Issei undid his technique and his eyes returned to their usual black. Apis was confused by that action. "You can come." Issei said, "I won't do anything to you." After that he and Apis had become good friends, Yamato had told him that Apis was a creation of Naruto to protect the line between other dimensions. Fin flashback after that, Apis started living with him since he really liked how quiet the place was. But today he feared that saying goodbye to her was time to return and bring peace to the supernatural. Apis said goodbye to Issei with a big smile. She had started to smile over time. Issei had left the dimension and the first thing he felt was all those negative energy fighting in a single point. Issei disappeared in a black flash to reappear in what was the battlefield where the three factions were fighting. The black-haired boy summoned his Yamato sword and then touched the ground with the tip of the sheath. A few seconds later, a large tree began to grow. The angels, the fallen, and the demons had stopped fighting to see what was happening. The large tree tied it with its branches. They tried to free themselves but they couldn't. Azazel didn't know what was happening. He couldn't let go and that bothered him. The three remaining Maos did not understand what was happening. Issei began to feel the presence of everyone who had been trapped in his technique. "It seems that my father is not here, nor is God," he thought. Issei snapped his fingers. In a matter of a second 4 people appeared in front of him. These people were still tied and hanging from the tree. The 4 people looked at Issei in confusion. "Who are you?" Azazel asked. Issei looked at him and with a small smile he said, "I am Issei Sparta, the Demon King." Lucifer was going to speak but in a matter of a second Issei had drawn his sword and killed the 3 remaining Maos. Azazel couldn't see when he moved or if he had moved at all. "I want to know where God and my father are." Issei asked Azazel. "They are in heaven." Before Issei's arrival the 3 factions had the same plan to end this war. And the 3 leaders had gone to battle. Before the battle began Satan had attacked God and they had been transported to heaven. Azazel deduced that he had taken him to heaven since without the angels that was the best setting for the 2 of them to fight. God and Satan had a tough fight but God had a bit of an advantage. Due to a distraction from God, Satan grabbed him by the neck and with his new technique began to take away his power. God dealt several blows to Satan's face but little by little he felt his power being taken away. After a while God stopped fighting and Satan threw him to the ground and then stepped on his face, destroying it and killing the biblical God in the process. Present behind Satan, a portal had formed where Issei emerged from it. Issei said Satan turned around and looked at his son with those empty black eyes. Satan knew he was Issei because he had the same energy as his son when he saw his dead mother. "Hello, father," Issei said. "You have betrayed me and for that reason you must die," Satan said, launching into an attack on Issei. The fist of the current Demon King collided with Issei's, generating a strong blizzard. Without wasting time, Issei grabbed him by the back of his neck and slammed his face into his knee. Issei summoned his sword and cut off Satan's left arm. The devil fell with his back to the floor. Issei put his feet on his Issei and said, "Today you will not die for the sole reason that you are my father." Issei touched Satan's forehead, sealing his powers, then opened a portal and said, "You will be locked in this place alone for life." Then Issei threw him into the portal and immediately the portal closed. Issei once again created another portal but this was a teleportation one. Before going on he undid the large tree that held captive the 3 factions in the human world. That day the Great War came to an end and many demons were looking for Issei to take the place of their deceased father. Kokabeel saw how the chestnut tree's friends were fighting to heal him. How pathetic, he said to himself. Akino couldn't stand it anymore and by slapping Asia strong she managed to regain consciousness. The nun saw Issei's body lying and a river of blood coming out of his abdomen. Without wasting time the nun began to heal him. A few seconds later a strange smoke surrounded the chestnut's body, missing those present who moved away for safety. Kokabeel watched this with great interest. Those present saw how Issei, covered in that smoke, stood up. The smoke covered the entire body of the brunette. The only thing that could be seen were those BLD red eyes. The smoke cleared, showing a black-haired man the size of Rias and those red eyes with 3 volumes. Imagine it with the clothes that Zerif wears. The black-haired man looked at Kokubile, and without him realizing it, Issei was already in front of him with his Yamato sword in hand. Seconds later, the cadre's head had detached from his body. Those present looked at the black-haired man analytically, since after he killed Kokubile, he stood there doing nothing without moving. Issei turned around, and those present saw that the red eyes were no longer there. They were now eyes black at night. "Who are you and what did you do with Issei-kun?" was what the blonde nun shouted/asked. That was the question everyone was asking. Issei did not respond. Rias was going to speak, but at that moment Sona and her entourage arrived. "It's been a while since I last saw you two," said Issei, looking at Sona and Rias. They looked at the black-haired man with confusion and intrigue as to who he was. "But unfortunately our meeting will have to be postponed due to some individuals who will soon arrive." Rias was going to speak, but 3 magic circles formed. One under Issei, another from the Gremory house, and the last from the Phoenix house. When Issei disappeared from the place, Serzerx and his queen along with Rias's husband appeared at the place. When Serzerx appeared at the scene, the first thing he did was look for his sister. When he saw her there with her entourage, he calmed down. Along with his wife and Raizer, they approached Rias to find out what was happening. Rias told her brother everything, but she didn't say anything about Issei so they wouldn't kill him. She talked about the strange black-haired man who appeared out of nowhere and who was the one who killed Kokubile. Lucifer was intrigued by this black-haired man and wanted to know who he was, but for the moment the most important thing was Rias' well-being. After disappearing in a magical circle, Issei arrived home where he met his non-biological parents who were waiting for him when he died because they weren't surprised or anything. "Issei has come," said Marta, running and hugging Issei. "I missed you a lot." "I miss you too, mother." "I'm glad to see you again," Issei said to Thomas. "Me too, father." After a warm welcome to Issei, the 3 sat at the table to talk about what was coming. "Well, as you know, years ago I disappeared due to some problems. I speak Issei, but I'm back and I've sorted out the issues I had on my mind, so it's time to take what belongs to me." Somewhere in Europe, seconds before Kokubile's death, a black-haired girl wearing a kimono of the same color was walking calmly down France Street when she suddenly began to feel a pain in her "So you've become a girl," the girl said with a small smile. In another part of Europe, seconds before Kokubile's death, a blonde and a blonde were eating when suddenly they both felt a pain in their cysti. "Did you feel that, Lufei?" asked a blonde who was sitting next to the aforementioned. "He's back," was what the blonde said. Somewhere else in Europe, seconds before Kokubile's death, we see a black-haired man who was hitting a tree. He kicked and punched it several times, but before giving another blow he felt his cysti hurt. With a smile on his face he said, "So you're back." In seconds before Kokubile's death, a silver-haired man sitting quietly watching TV as if he had no mission to do felt a pain in his cysti. "So you're back." In seconds before Kokubile's death, we see how a black-haired man and a brunette were eating calmly as if they did not feel what was happening at Kwa Academy. When they were about to take their first bite, they felt a great pain in their cysti. "He's back," said the black-haired man. In the underworld, seconds before Kokubile's defeat, in one of the houses of the great families of the underworld, a blonde was sleeping peacefully when out of nowhere she felt her cysti burning, lifting her immediately. "You're back." Gift the day after the events with Kokubile. Rias and her entourage had to return to the underworld because Issei had class and could not meet with him. Issei walked calmly toward school as if his appearance had not changed, and many people at the academy looked at him as if he were a new student, but as soon as they passed the entrance their gaze changed to a different one from a normal one, as if he had always had black hair and as if he always went to 3rd grade. Some girls even looked at him with hearts because of how handsome he was. But why is this? Before classes started, Issei went to the academy and charmed the entrance. Now every human who enters will no longer remember the old Issei but will now see him as Issei, the most handsome and popular 3rd-year student in all. Of course this only works with humans, which is why Sona was intrigued by the young black-haired man sitting in front of her. "Who are you and what did you do with Issei?" Sona asked. "Well, actually I'm Issei," said the black-haired man, "but not the one you know. I'm really Issei." I don't understand what he said so soon. Well, in the past I had some problems and decided that it was better to disappear. Issei explained. I loved my body, changed my appearance and erased my memory. And how did you go back to how you were before? Sona asked, not clearly understanding what the black-haired man was saying. When the fried chicken defeated me, I started to remember my past, said Issei. I only remembered fragments until in my fight with Kokobile I remembered everything. I understand, said Sona. I'm glad, said Issei, and I apologize for what I said. Sona was going to ask what he meant, but a black magic circle appeared in the center of the room, taking Sona and her entourage by surprise. As they couldn't move, it was as if something had tied them up. What are you doing? He asked, unable to move. I have a goal, and to reach it I need you to remember me. With that said, Issei approached the black-haired girl with glasses and touched her forehead with his index finger. A small black seal formed on her forehead and then disappeared. Sona then fainted, worrying her entourage that they couldn't move. I will free them from my binding magic, but first I will leave so that none of them attack me, said Issei with a smile, walking towards the exit. After the black-haired man left, those present felt that they could move and ran to their king to see if he was okay. Underworld, Phoenix territory. In the huge house of the main family, in one of the many rooms there was a red-haired girl was talking to her new knight and her queen about some topics, when suddenly Rias felt like her head was going to explode and she fainted from the pain. Akino, very worried, lays Rias on the bed and sends for Asia to see what she has. 1 hour later Rias had woken up with a small headache, but she looked happy. You're back, was what he said. Human world, Japan airport. Well, time, I just have to get to Quinea. This is a black-haired girl speaking. Academia. Issei was bored, the classes were super boring and that bothered him. The door opened, showing the queen of Sona, who spoke stoically as always. I come from Hyoudou Issei. Of course, the teacher said respectfully that Hyoudou would go. Issei stood up and followed the queen of Sona to the student council room. When they passed the door, Issei could see a Sona sitting at his desk waiting for him. You were calling me? Issei said. Sona looked at him and then stopped and approached him. I missed you, he said, and then gave him a hug that Issei returned. At that moment Sona broke down and started crying, and this surprised many of her nobility. They had never seen her like this. Why did you leave? Why did you leave me? Sona said while crying and giving small blows to Issei. I'll tell you when you're here, said Issei. She also deserves to know the truth. Sona just nodded. Will you leave again? Sona asked sadly. I won't go so tan anymore, said Issei, hugging Sona tightly. Hours later Issei walked calmly home. Today was a relaxed day, his plan was already underway, and all that was missing was the arrival of his nobility for everything to be ready. When the black-haired man was about to open the door, he felt several presences coming from inside his house. He opened the door and walked towards the room where these presences were. The black-haired man arrived at the room and looked at those present with a smile. They finally arrived, he said. 6 days later Rias was happy. It had been 6 days since she remembered that man who made her smile when she was a child, that man she loved so much, that man she missed. She did not feel anything romantic about the brown Issei. She loved him but only saw him as a little brother that she had to take care of. Her heart will always belong to that man who as a child took care of her and protected her. She was happy because that man always protected her. She was afraid to see him. She was no longer pure. How could she ask him to love her if she was no longer worthy of being his woman? Those were some of the things that Rias thought. Tomorrow she and her nobility, along with Raizer and his nobility of course, they would go to the human world with their brother for the meeting that would take place at the Core Academy between the 3 factions. At that moment Raizer entered Rias's room. The blonde man was a little drunk. He approached Rias and without her being able to say anything he embraced her, undressed her, he pulled down his blankets and without saying anything else began to penetrate her. Excuse me, I thought you laughed with your eyes closed thinking about the man she loved with all my heart. I'm very weak, sorry for not being worthy of you. I thought Rias, and a tear fell. At that moment Raizer had already had what he wanted. He got ready a little and left the room. Rias went to the bathroom to wash. She was in the tub in her right hand, a ball made with the power of destruction. I die, maybe I will be happy in my other life, she thought. But before she did anything, Aquino came in and saw her, and as if she were Minato, she was already next to Rias hugging her. "Don't do something crazy," Rias Aquino said to Rias, who when she felt the hug started to cry. "I just want to get out of this suffering," said Rias. "I just want to be free." "Human world 6 days before, so you finally arrived," said Issei, looking at his nobility sitting at the table. "Since some of you don't know each other that much, I want you to introduce yourselves." Issei's peerage nodded. The first to present was a silver-haired man. He was wearing Altich breathes, a gray sweater and Altich jacket. He was also wearing black sneakers. "Well, I am Valley Lucifer and I am Issei's pawn," he said. "I am Lefei Pendragon and I am Narusama's bishop," said an enthusiastic Lefei. She was a slim girl, with shoulder-length blonde hair and blue eyes. Her outfit consists of a sorceress dress with a huge blue hat with a black bow and yellow stars and a matching cape with pink flowers and a white interior. "I am Arthur Pendragon and I am Issei's knight," Arthur said. He is a young man with glasses, with blonde hair and a lock of hair on his face, who dresses in a business suit and is Faye's older brother. "I am Thomas and I am Issei's adoptive father." "I am also his knight," said Thomas. He was a black man. He had well-marked muscles. Not so much as to be an exaggeration, he always dressed elegantly just like Arthur. "I am Marta, I am the tower and Issei's mother," she said with a smile so tender that it was disturbing to those present. Marta was a woman with an excellent figure. She was brown and dressed in a priestess's kimono. "I am Biko, I am the tower of Issei and I am also the descendant of the Monkey King Son Goku," he said. He is a young-looking monkey dressed in ancient Chinese armor that was used during the Three Kingdoms PRD. Like his predecessor, Biko has the ability to change his appearance into a young black-haired man. "Well, I am Kuroka, I am Issei's queen and future wife," she said, leaving Issei pale. Kuroka is a young woman with a voluptuous figure. She has long black hair and hazel eyes with feline pupils. Her clothing consists of a black kimono, yellow sash, a set of gold beads, and an elaborately decorated headband. The inside of the kimono is red and is open at her shoulders, revealing her large that rival those of Rias and Aquino in terms of size. In his Nikomata form, he has a pair of black cat ears and 2 black tails. Since everyone has already introduced themselves, I'm going to. But Issei couldn't continue because he also lost his hand. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Aren't Issei-sama missing a bishop?" Lu Fei asked with doubt. "Well, she's somewhere else, that's why she's not here," replied Issei, "but don't worry, you'll soon meet her." Those present nodded. "Well, as I was saying, I'm going to take what's mine and for that I need you," said Issei. "This is what I'm going to do." For some this would be a normal day, but for Issei this would be the day he would return to the world as the strongest demon, as Issei Sparta. The black-haired man sleeping peacefully next to him was Kuroka and Faye. Kuroka was totally naked, while Faye was wearing red pajamas with witch hat prints. The black-haired man and his companions were sleeping peacefully until they knocked on the door of their room. Issei reluctantly got up without waking his sleeping beauties. He went to the door, opened it, and saw his mother. "What's wrong, mother?" he asked. "They are looking for you," was what he said to leave. Issei put on a sweater and went down to the living room where Aquino, the queen of Rias, was sitting in one of the chairs. "To what do I owe your presence in my humble house, Aquino-san?" Issei asked, sitting next to her. "I'm coming to look for Issei Aquino." "I'm glad to know you're okay," said Issei, taking Aquino by surprise. "What are you talking about?" "I've never seen you," the queen of Rias said. Issei sat on the same couch as Aquino but then began to rub her cheeks. "You've grown a lot since the last time I saw you, sadistic-chan," he said. Aquino opened her eyes. How could she forget about the person who gave her a home? She couldn't take it anymore at that moment and started to cry. Sorry, she said. "No, I wanted to forget you, sorry." Issei gave her a hug and began to comfort the little girl who was Aquino. After a while Aquino managed to calm down and she said, "I don't understand how I could forget you." "I will tell you everything, but this is not the time," said Issei. She just nodded and then remembered why she was in that place. "Sama, I am here to take you to the temple where Archangel Michael will give you the Dragon Slayer sword," he said. Issei wanted the sword, so he decided to go. He just had to transform back into the brunette. That day Rias had freed his other bishop. And together with Sona they prepared the school for what would be the meeting of the leaders of the three factions. Night had already appeared and everything was ready for the meeting. Each group had arrived with their companions. Azazel arrived with Vale, Michael arrived with his sister Gabriel and the new angel Irina Hyoudou. Mal Lucifer arrived with Seraphil and her sister with her entourage and with Raizer and her entourage. Sona was also there with her entourage. Of course, this does not mean that there were several angels, fallen people and demons guarding the surroundings. Many of us hoped that the Hyoudou would be with us, said Azazel. He is not here on business, said Serzerx. Well, although many of you wanted him to be here, I think it's better to get to the topic of this meeting, Michael said. Well, I want to know, what was a fallen angel doing in my sister's territory? And why did he act like that? Said the Mal Lucifer. Well, Kokabeel was someone who refused peace. I speak Azazel, and that's why he did what he did to create another war. And you don't have control over your men, said Serzerx. Some of them don't want peace, Azazel said calmly. I would like to know what the facts were and what happened in the fight that the Gremari and Citri heiresses had against Kokabeel, said Michael. Rias was the first to say that Kokabeel wanted to kill us so that my brother would appear and with that another war would start, said Rias. He said that his first plan was to steal the fragments of Excalibur so that Michael could send some of his angels and thus start another war. I speak Sona, but since the church only sent 2 exorcists, that plan was no longer useful. In the battle against Kokabeel, a man appeared and rescued us, said Rias, gaining the full attention of those present. He was my size, he had black hair and eyes of the same color. He wore a black tunic, along with a large toga. Flowing white covering his body on his He has unusual sharp fangs. To conclude, he wears black breeds and boots of the same color. She also wears a silver circle-shaped necklace. That unknown man arrived and killed Kokabeel as if it were nothing. Sona finished. Those present were still surprised because they only knew one person with that description. The leaders thought whether or not it was the same person. When Azazel was going to speak, time stopped worrying all the leaders who saw how on the part of the angels only Irina had been paralyzed, on the part of the demons everyone had been paralyzed, only the 2 Mal were fine. Azazel had brought Vale and he knew that this was not going to do anything to him. They are attacking us, Azazel said calmly. They have my sister's bishop, Serzerx, say so that the others come to their senses. We need someone to go and save my sister's bishop. I'll go, Vale said, surprising Azazel. Give this to the boy when you find him, Azazel said, giving Vale a bracelet that will control his power. After Vale disappeared, the room was destroyed by some magicians. Luckily, Gabriel and the leaders of the factions managed to make a barrier to protect those who could not move. I came to kill that false Seraphil, said a voice in the air, gaining the attention of the leaders. But if it's your Kateria, Seraphil said. You guys go fight, I'll keep the barrier, said Gabriel. The leaders nodded and went to the attack. Fence was the voice that was heard between the trees. Who's there? Seraphil said. It makes me sad to know that you no longer remember me, Sarachan. Hours before the meeting of the 3 factions begins, Issei had arrived from his meeting with Michael. The archangel had given him the sacred dragon slayer sword. Issei did not intend to use said sword, but perhaps in the future he will give it to someone he feels is worthy. Issei sat at the table waiting for the food his mother had made. Next to him in one of the seats was Arthur waiting for the food just like him. Arthur, I want you to go to Ko Academy and inform me of everything that is happening, said Issei looking at the named one. And that for what? Isangama the blonde asked. I have a feeling that something is wrong. Issei said Arthur didn't say anything else. It was enough for him. Time passed and after eating Arthur went to fulfill his mission. It was almost time for the meeting and all the Issei members were ready. All that was left was for Arthur to return. And as if they were called, the blonde appeared in the room where everyone was waiting. Did you notice anything? Issei asked, sitting on the couch. Some wizards have entered the academy and hidden themselves, Arthur said, sitting next to Issei. Wizards, huh? What are they planning? Issei wondered out loud. Some magicians are with the old Mal faction, Vale said. Issei looked at him. Then I think I know what they are planning. He said this will be the plan. Rias has a bishop capable of stopping time. Maybe they will use it to reduce the number of the enemy. If that happens, Vale, I want you to go. I understand the name. Issei nodded and then continued explaining the plan. Well, the others will finish off the magicians and I will finish off their leader. That will be a good appearance. All of Issei's nobility nodded. Issei was with his peerage waiting outside the academy for the moment to enter. A few minutes passed and then you felt how the magic of Rias's second bishop was triggered as if it were the signal. Everyone shot in a blur of speed towards the academy. Issei and his entourage killed the magicians who were trying to enter the academy. What they had done was a bloodbath. They entered and what Issei saw was that Seraphil was going to fight with the heir of Leviathan. Issei's eyes turned red and he began to walk towards the current Mao Leviathan. Bala, said Issei entering the scene. Who's there? Seraphil asked. It makes me sad to know that you no longer remember me, Serachan said Issei, letting himself be seen by everyone. The Mao opened her eyes and couldn't believe what she was seeing. Well, everyone present couldn't believe what they were seeing. In front of them was one of the most powerful beings of all. Seraphil ran and launched into a tight hug that Issei reciprocated. I will miss you, said Issei. Me too, she responded. The moment was interrupted by an ice dagger that came out of the floor. What a romantic moment, but I will kill them both. The dissenting Leviathan shouted. Issei looks at her with those red eyes and without doing anything Issei had turned the body of the ancient Leviathan into cenizas. Those present are surprised that Issei has not lost power all these years. A second later time returned for the weakest. Valley appeared next to Issei, gaining Azazel's attention. You were late, don't you think? Issei said. Shut up, said a frustrated Valley. Issei couldn't take it anymore and started laughing, earning Valley's anger. Everyone was gathered and ready to start this meeting that would mark the peace of the three factions, but there was something that bothered Issei, and that is that Raizer is trying to embrace Rias, his Rias. That's when he remembers the video and everything that happened. I had forgotten, Issei whispered. His power was felt again in the room, scaring many. Those red eyes returned and this time they looked with rage and anger at a fried bird. Everyone saw where Issei was looking and prayed that poor Raizer wouldn't die. The fried chicken tried to remain fearless, but those eyes gave chills. Issei disappeared in a blur of pure speed, appearing behind Raizer, who broke into a cold sweat as he felt Issei's presence. Raizer was going to turn around to face him but only felt a fist smash his face with such force that almost all of his teeth flew out. Issei's blow sent him out of the room, crashing into the main courtyard of the school. Issei quickly followed him. It seems that destiny doesn't want us to sign those stupid papers, said Azazel. With Issei, he began to slowly cut his arms with the Dragon Slayer sword. Raizer could only scream in pain. Issei lifted him by the neck and made him look him in the eyes. Raizer felt that his entire environment changed. Now he was tied to a cross. The sky was no longer black, it was now red. Issei appeared in front of Raizer. Please, to stop the fried chicken, Issei didn't give it any importance and created 5,000 copies of himself to continue the torture. Before starting, Issei said, you can't use magic here, this is my world and in my world you do what I want. First he started by burning him, then he cut his feet and arms, and then healed him and cut him again. He repeated the action about 1,000 times, then he made his copy RPE him one by one. Issei's nobility watched everything with curiosity. They wanted to see what Issei was capable of doing with 5% of his power. The leaders and members of the other factions did not know what was happening, but none of them were capable of doing anything. None of them wanted to get involved with Issei. On the other hand, Rias and Aquino did know what was happening. Rias was happy because Issei was defending her. With Issei, he was looking at Raizer's emaciated body. Please kill me now, whispered the fried chicken. Issei began to crush his skull and rebuild it about 1,000 times. Then he created thousands of wild animals that began to devour Raizer's meat and Issei reconstructed it for him. Issei, without having any more ideas, left his world. Lying on the ground was Raizer and Issei had his foot on his head. Today will be the day you die for me, said Issei. Raizer's body was set alight in a black fire that consumed even the bones of the phoenix. The phoenix is curious, it burns to death, Aquino said. They all thought the same. The meeting after that went well. Issei would have to return to the underworld and take his position as the rightful king. Surzex thanked Issei for killing Raizer and said that he would explain everything to the Phoenix family. Issei did not give importance to what the red-haired man wanted and went to talk with laughter. Everyone had already left and Rias was alone with Issei in the cult club. It's been a long time since Rias spoke Issei. And sorry for not being there for you, he said. Don't worry, the other Issei protected me, Rias said. So, Akino told you everything, Issei said. She told me everything. I love you, Rias Gremory. Rias couldn't take it anymore and started to cry. You love me with everything and I can't give you my first time anymore, she said. Issei approached her and hugged her. I have loved you since the beginning of everything. They stayed like that for a while until Rias asked him. Can you tell me why you left? Of course. A week had passed, Issei and his entourage were in the underworld. Today would be the day that Issei presented himself to the demons as their king.